The discovery hit me like a freight train, shattering the silence of the afternoon. As I sifted through the pile of neglected mail, my fingers trembled upon an envelope with the bold print, "Termination Notice." It was addressed to Nathan. My heart raced, confusion clouding my thoughts. Why would Nathan be terminated? The apartment felt colder, the air heavier, as if bracing for a storm. I dialed Nathan's number, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. "Julia, what's up? Calling in the middle of the day?" His voice, usually warm, now seemed distant, guarded. "Nathan, I found something odd in the mail. It's a termination notice." "What happened?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but panic laced my words. "I'm on a business trip in Seattle, Julia. Can't talk now. I'm in a me later." The line went dead before I could protest. A business trip? The lie was blatant, almost insulting. Nathan hadn't mentioned any trips. My mind raced, piecing together his recent late nights and evasive answers. Something wasn't right. Needing clarity, I called my former boss, Linda. Her surprise at hearing my voice did little to ease my anxiety. "Julia Wells? This is unexpected. How can I help?" Linda's voice was warm but carried an undercurrent of confusion. "It's about Nathan. I found a termination notice, and he's saying he's on a business trip. I'm just trying to understand what's happening." My voice cracked, betraying my attempt at composure. There was a pause, heavy and loaded, before Linda responded. "Julia, you didn't know? Nathan was let go over a month ago. There was an incident. He leaked confidential information to a competitor." The room spun, and I struggled to breathe. Betrayal, sharp and bitter, coursed through me. "Leaked information? But why?" Linda sighed. "It's a mess, Julia. There were rumors about him and Eve, the new secretary. Both disappeared after the incident. It's believed she was involved with someone from the competitor's side. A setup, possibly." "Eve?" The name stung, a missing piece to a puzzle I hadn't realized I was assembling. Memories flashed, Nathan's late returns, his phone buzzing with messages he'd quickly hide. It all made sense now, a narrative of deceit I had been too blind to see. I need to think about this. Thank you, Linda." My voice was a whisper drowned out by the roaring in my ears. The call ended, leaving me adrift in a sea of betrayal. My marriage, built on love and trust, now lay in ruins, the foundation eroded by lies and infidelity. Nathan's voice echoed in my mind, a mocking reminder of the facade he had maintained. Anger bubbled within me, a fierce, burning need for retribution. Nathan and Eve, their deceit had not only shattered my trust, but jeopardized my future. They would not get away with this. I would make sure of it. As I stood in the silent apartment, a plan began to form. I would confront Nathan, demand answers, and then I would make them pay. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, and I intended to serve it frozen. With newfound resolve, I packed a bag. It was time to return to my family, to the home where love and honesty still held meaning. There I would heal, and there I would plot my next move. Nathan and Eve had awakened a fury within me, one that would not rest until justice was served. The drive back to my parents' house was a blur, the landscape passing by unnoticed. My thoughts were consumed by visions of confrontation and vindication. The once cherished memories of Nathan and me now soured, replaced by the bitter taste of betrayal. As the familiar outline of my parents' home came into view, a sense of determination settled over me. Nathan and Eve's deceit had marked the end of one chapter in my life, but it was also the beginning of another. One where I would reclaim my dignity and emerge stronger, no longer a victim of their treachery. The stage was set, the players aligned. It was time for the shadows of deceit to give way to the light of retribution. Returning to my family's home felt like stepping into a different world, one where the shadows of Nathan's betrayal couldn't reach. The warmth of the hearth and the familiar scent of wood shavings offered a balm to my bruised heart. Yet as I settled into the rhythm of my childhood home, the contrast between my past and present couldn't have been starker. My father, ever the stoic craftsman, noticed my turmoil. "Julia, you're home early. Is everything all right?" His voice, roughened by years of work, carried a note of concern. I forced a smile, the weight of my secret heavy on my shoulders. "Just needed a break from the city, Dad. It's nice to be back." He nodded, sensing the unspoken words between us. "Well, you're always welcome here. This home is your sanctuary." The dinner table was a tableau of familial warmth, a stark contrast to the cold lies Nathan had served. My mother's keen eyes watched me, her intuition sharp. "Julia, you've been quiet tonight. Is there something on your mind?" The floodgates opened. Under the soft glow of the dining room light, I spilled the bitter truth of Nathan's deceit, his affair with Eve, and the termination notice that had shattered my world. My brother Alex clenched his fists, the muscles in his jaw working. "That coward! To think he'd betray you like this, and with a secretary no less. He'll regret this, Julia. I'll make sure of it." "No, Alex," I interjected, my voice firm despite the turmoil within. "This is my battle. I'll handle Nathan and Eve. They'll pay for what they've done." The resolve in my family's eyes fortified my own. This betrayal would not define me. Nathan and Eve's deception would be met with a reckoning, one crafted with the precision and care my family poured into their work. In the days that followed, my sanctuary became a fortress of planning. The serene backdrop of the woods and the workshop's steady rhythm fueled my resolve. I began documenting everything, collecting evidence of Nathan's betrayal and his professional misconduct. Each piece of evidence was a nail in the coffin I was building for Nathan's deceit. One afternoon, as I sat in the workshop, surrounded by the comforting scent of cedar and maple, my phone rang. It was Nathan, his voice oozing false concern. "Julia, darling, why haven't you been answering my calls? I've been worried about you." The term of endearment, once sweet, now tasted like poison. "Worried? That's rich, Nathan. Or should I be asking Eve how concerned you really are?" There was a pause, a moment of silence where the facade cracked. "Julia, it's not what you think. Eve is just a colleague. Nothing more." I laughed, a sound sharp and cold. "Save your lies, Nathan. I know about the termination notice, the affair, everything. You're nothing but a coward who hides behind lies and deceit." Nathan's voice hardened, the mask slipping further. "You're overreacting, Julia. We can talk about this. Fix it." "Fix it?" My voice rose, fueled by anger and betrayal. "There's nothing left to fix. You've made your choice, and now you'll live with the consequences." I hung up, cutting off any retort he might have had. The finality of the act was liberating, a declaration of war against the man who had vowed to love and protect me. As the days turned into weeks, my resolve only strengthened. With my family's support, I began to rebuild, finding solace in the beauty of nature and the legacy of craftsmanship that had defined my lineage. My heart, though bruised, began to mend, fortified by the knowledge that retribution was within reach. Nathan and Eve's day of reckoning was coming. The echoes of their deceit would be drowned out by the whispers of retribution, a melody I intended to compose with meticulous care. The stage was set, and I was ready to take my stand. The next phase of my plan unfolded with a cold, deliberate precision. Armed with evidence of Nathan's duplicity and his affair with Eve, I sought legal counsel, ready to sever the ties that bound us in matrimony and deceit. My lawyer, a woman of sharp intellect and unwavering resolve, listened intently as I laid bare the extent of Nathan's betrayal. "As far as cases go, Julia, this one is as clear-cut as they come. We'll file for divorce on the grounds of infidelity and emotional distress. And rest assured, we'll make sure Nathan and his accomplice face the consequences of their actions," she assured me, her voice laced with a promise of retribution. Fueled by a mix of vindication and sorrow, I returned home, where my family awaited, their support unwavering. It was during these moments, surrounded by the comforting embrace of my family, that my resolve hardened. Nathan and Eve's deception would not go unpunished. The confrontation I had longed for came sooner than expected. Nathan, in a rare moment of courage or perhaps folly, arrived at my parents' doorstep, his expression a mixture of guilt and defiance. "Julia, we need to talk. I can explain everything," he began, stepping into the living room where my family and I stood united. "Explain? Explain how you lied, cheated, and risked our future for a fling?" My voice was calm, but beneath the surface, a storm raged. "It wasn't just a fling, Julia. Eve, she understands me in ways you never did," Nathan countered, his words slicing through the air like a knife. The room fell silent, the audacity of his admission hanging heavily between us. My brother Alex stepped forward, his anger barely contained. "You're pathetic, Nathan, to come here into our home and insult my sister with your vile excuses." "Enough," I interjected, my gaze locked on Nathan. "Your words mean nothing to me now. You've made your choice, and I've made mine. We're done, Nathan. I want a divorce. and I'll make sure everyone knows the kind of man you truly are." Nathan's facade crumbled, revealing a glimpse of the cowardice I had come to despise. "Julia, please, let's not make this messier than it needs to be. Think about what you're doing." "I have thought about it, Nathan. Every single day and night since I discovered your betrayal, you're the one who hasn't thought about the consequences of your actions. But you will. Oh, you will," I promised, my words icy. With that, Nathan left, his departure as unremarkable as his presence had become in my life. The door closing behind him felt symbolic, the final chapter of our shared life ending with a soft yet resounding click. In the days that followed, the legal proceedings began. Every step, from filing the divorce papers to serving Nathan with the notice, felt like shedding the weight of a life built on lies. The evidence of his infidelity and the repercussions of his professional misconduct painted a damning picture, one that left little room for sympathy. The community, once oblivious to Nathan's true nature, began to see him for what he was. His reputation, both personal and professional, unraveled, a fitting retribution for the pain he had caused. Eve, too, found herself ostracized, her role in Nathan's life, and their collective betrayal exposed for all to see. As the legal battle waged on, I found strength in my family's unwavering support and the work that grounded me. The workshop, with its chorus of hammers and saws, became my sanctuary, a place where I could lose myself in the beauty of creation and the simplicity of honest labor. Nathan and Eve's downfall was a slow, inevitable spiral, their actions catching up to them in a cascade of legal and social repercussions. The satisfaction of seeing justice served was bittersweet, a reminder of the cost of their betrayal. Yet amidst the chaos, I found peace. The veil of deceit had been lifted, revealing a path forward, one where I could rebuild my life on my terms, surrounded by the love and integrity of my family. The chapter of Nathan and Eve was closing, but mine was just beginning, a narrative of resilience, redemption, and ultimately renewal. In the weeks that followed Nathan's departure and the initiation of our legal battles, I immersed myself in the work and traditions of my family's craft. The workshop, with its timeless rhythm and the scent of fresh wood, became my solace and my strength. It was here, amid the shavings and the sculptures, that a plan began to take shape. A plan not just for revenge, but for reclaiming my life and legacy. My parents, sensing a change within me, offered their silent support, their love a constant amidst the turmoil. It was during one of our evening gatherings, the golden light of sunset filtering through the windows, that my father spoke up, his voice breaking the comfortable silence. "Julia, your mother and I have been talking. We know you're going through a lot, but we also see the strength in you. The workshop. It's always been a part of who we are, and we think it's time it became a part of your future, too." His words, simple yet profound, struck a chord within me. The workshop wasn't just a place of business. It was a legacy, a testament to the values and skills passed down through generations. And now it was offering me a path forward, a way to rebuild and to make Nathan and Eve's betrayal a distant memory. As I pondered my father's words, my brother Alex brought news that added fuel to my resolve. I heard from a friend in town, Nathan and Eve. They're trying to spin the story, make it seem like you were the one at fault. Anger flared within me, hot and fierce. They're trying to tarnish my name? After everything they've done? Alex nodded, his own anger mirroring mine. But they're not finding it easy. Seems your story, the truth, is already out there. People are siding with you, Julia. Nathan and Eve, they're the ones being shunned. The news was a balm to my wounded heart. The community's support was unexpected but deeply appreciated. It reinforced my determination to not only clear my name, but to ensure Nathan and Eve faced the full consequences of their actions. With renewed purpose, I threw myself into the workshop, learning the intricacies of our craft from my father and the other artisans. Each piece I worked on, each design I sketched, felt like a step away from my past and toward a new beginning. And as I worked, I planned. The evidence I had gathered against Nathan and Eve was damning, but I wanted more than just legal victory. I wanted to expose them for who they truly were, to show the world their deceit and their cowardice. My opportunity came sooner than expected. A local community event, a showcase of artisans and craftsmen from our area, was approaching. It was the perfect platform to not only promote our family's work, but to publicly reclaim my story. "I'm going to present at the event," I announced to my family one evening, a sense of purpose infusing my words. "It's time I stepped out of the shadows Nathan and Eve tried to cast over me." My family's approval was unanimous, their pride in my resilience a tangible thing. Preparations for the event began in earnest, with each of us contributing to the collection of pieces we would display. But my contribution would be more than just crafts. It would be my declaration of independence from Nathan's betrayal, a showcase of strength forged in the fires of adversity. The day of the event arrived, a buzz of excitement filling the air as the community gathered to celebrate local talent. My heart pounded with a mix of nerves and anticipation as I took my place behind our display, the woodwork gleaming under the soft lights. As I spoke to the attendees, explaining the history and the heart behind each piece, I felt a sense of empowerment. Nathan and Eve's attempt to undermine me had failed. Here, among my peers and my community, I stood tall, my reputation untarnished. And then, amidst the crowd, I saw them. Nathan and Eve, their expressions a mix of surprise and unease as they realized the support surrounding me. The moment our eyes met, I knew. The battle may have been long and painful, but the victory was mine. Their deceit had been exposed, their reputations irrevocably damaged by their own actions. The event was a triumph, not just for our family's business, but for me personally. I had faced the worst kind of betrayal and emerged stronger, my spirit unbroken. Nathan and Eve's shadows no longer loomed over me. I had stepped into the light, my future bright with promise and possibility. As the community rallied around me, offering congratulations and support, I realized that this was just the beginning. My journey from the depths of despair to the heights of redemption was a testament to the power of resilience and the unbreakable bonds of family. Nathan and Eve had sought to destroy me, but in their malice, they had only forged a stronger, more determined Julia Wells. And as I looked toward the future, I knew there was nothing I couldn't overcome. In the aftermath of the community event, the winds of change began to blow through my life with a newfound intensity. The support of the community had not only bolstered my spirits, but had also painted a target on Nathan and Eve's backs. Their attempts to navigate the social circles they once dominated were met with cold shoulders and disdainful whispers. My story, rooted in truth and resilience, had reshaped the narrative, casting them in the stark light of reality. As the divorce proceedings advanced, I was summoned to a mediation session, a final attempt to resolve matters without further court intervention. The prospect of facing Nathan and Eve, not just as the wronged party, but as an empowered woman reclaiming her narrative, filled me with a sense of grim satisfaction. The mediation room was sterile, the air thick with tension. Nathan sat across from me, his usual arrogance replaced by a sullen resignation. Eve was not present, a fact that spoke volumes about the fractures in their facade. "Nathan, we're here to finalize the terms of the divorce. It's clear that the marriage cannot be salvaged," the mediator began, her voice neutral yet firm. Nathan's gaze met mine, a flicker of something. Regret, perhaps, or merely the realization of his impending downfall, crossed his face. "Julia, I know I messed up. I never meant for things to go this far," he stammered, his voice lacking its usual confidence. The words meant to elicit sympathy only fueled my resolve. "Messed up? You betrayed our vows, Nathan. This goes beyond a simple mistake. You made your choices, and now you must live with the consequences," I replied, my voice steady and unwavering. The mediator interjected, "Let's focus on the division of assets and any financial settlements. Julia, your lawyer has presented a compelling case for substantial compensation considering Nathan's infidelity and the impact on your life." Nathan bristled at the mention of compensation. "This is extortion. I admit I made mistakes, but to ruin me financially." "Ruin you?" I cut in, my patience wearing thin. "You ruined our marriage, Nathan. Whatever financial consequences you face are the result of your own actions. Actions that have consequences. It's time you learned that." The mediator, sensing the futility of further discussion, moved to finalize the paperwork. The settlement was in my favor, a testament to the strength of my case and the evidence of Nathan's wrongdoing. As we left the mediation room, Nathan paused, turning to me with a look of desperation. "Julia, please, can't we just put this behind us? For the sake of what we had?" what we had. The words were a knife to my heart, a reminder of the love I once felt, now tarnished by betrayal. What we had died the moment you chose Eve over our marriage. Goodbye, Nathan. With those final words, I walked away, leaving Nathan and the wreckage of our marriage behind. The legal battle was over, but the fight to rebuild my life was just beginning. In the weeks that followed, my focus turned to the workshop and the burgeoning success of our family business. The community's support had translated into increased interest and sales, a silver lining in the dark cloud of the past months. Yet, as the business thrived, I couldn't shake the feeling of unfinished business. Nathan and Eve's social and professional downfall was a form of justice, but it was the inner work, the healing and rebuilding of my own life, that required my attention. I poured my energy into the workshop, finding solace in the creation of beautiful things. Each piece I crafted was a step towards healing, a tangible representation of my journey from betrayal to strength. The community event, once a platform for my public vindication, became an annual tradition, a celebration of resilience and the enduring spirit of our town. My story, once a tale of pain and betrayal, had transformed into a narrative of empowerment and renewal. Nathan and Eve faded into the background, their attempts to reclaim their former lives thwarted by their own actions. The community, once deceived by their facade, now saw them for who they truly were. As for me, I emerged from the ordeal stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. The betrayal that once threatened to break me had instead forged a new path, one where I stood tall, unafraid, and ready to face whatever the future held. The seasons changed, as did the narrative of my life. The community event had not only become a cornerstone for our family business, but also a testament to the enduring strength of character over the deceit and betrayal that Nathan and Eve had sown. As the workshop flourished, so did my resolve to move past the shadows of my former life. Yet, the true test of my newfound strength was just on the horizon. A year had passed since the divorce was finalized when a twist of fate brought Nathan and Eve back into my orbit. The local news carried stories of a scandal involving a significant business in town, ensnared in deceit and fraudulent activities. At the heart of the scandal were Nathan and Eve, their actions finally catching up to them in a very public downfall. The community's reaction was swift and unforgiving. Nathan and Eve, once fixtures of the social scene, found themselves ostracized, their reputations in tatters. It was during this time that Eve reached out to me, a desperate attempt to salvage what little she could from the ruins of their actions. "Julia, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I'm begging you to listen." Eve's voice trembled over the phone, a stark contrast to the confident woman who had once stood by Nathan's side. "Eve, you're right. You have no right. After everything you and Nathan did, why should I listen to anything you have to say?" My voice was cold, the bitterness of the past still lingering. "I understand your anger, Julia, but it's Nathan. He's in trouble, serious trouble. The business scandal has ruined him, and he's not handling it well," Eve pleaded, desperation coloring her every word. The news of Nathan's downfall, though expected, brought no joy. The man I had once loved, now a shadow of his former self, was a stark reminder of the consequences of one's actions. "Eve, Nathan's troubles are his own making. You both made your choices, and now you must live with them. My life has moved on, and I suggest you do the same," I replied, the finality in my voice leaving no room for further discussion. The call ended, but the news of Nathan's scandal lingered, a topic of hushed conversations and whispered speculations in the community. Yet, amidst the schadenfreude, a sense of closure enveloped me. Nathan and Eve's public downfall was the retribution their actions had wrought, a karmic justice for the pain they had caused. In the wake of their scandal, I found myself reflecting on the journey I had undertaken. From the depths of betrayal to the heights of personal and professional success, my path had been fraught with challenges. Yet each obstacle had only served to strengthen my resolve, to forge me into a woman who faced adversity with grace and determination. The workshop, once a refuge from my pain, had become a beacon of my resilience. The pieces we created, each imbued with the essence of our family's legacy, were more than just objects of beauty. They were symbols of a life reclaimed from the ashes of betrayal. As the scandal surrounding Nathan and Eve faded into the background, my focus remained on the future. The support of the community, once a lifeline in my darkest moments, had become a foundation upon which I built my new life. My story, once marred by the actions of others, was now solely my own, a narrative of triumph over adversity. Nathan and Eve's downfall, while a fitting end to their tale of deceit, was merely a footnote in mine. My journey had taught me that true strength lies not in the vengeance we seek, but in the resilience we demonstrate in the face of life's inevitable trials. As I stood in the workshop, surrounded by the fruits of our labor, I realized that the greatest retribution was not the downfall of those who had wronged me, but the life I had built in spite of them. My legacy would not be defined by Nathan and Eve's betrayal, but by the strength, love, and integrity that had seen me through the storm. And so, with my head held high and my heart at peace, I looked toward the future, ready to embrace whatever it held, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them with the same strength and resilience that had brought me this far. Nathan and Eve's chapter in my life was closed, but mine was still being written, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome, to heal, and to thrive.
This house now belongs to our oldest son and his wife. If you're not part of the family, you should leave now. Even though I've been paying the mortgage for this house, my in-laws and husband shocked me with their statements. They've been using me to pay off the mortgage all along. When I found out, I went from feeling thankful to really angry. Fine then, I'll move out, I said defiantly to their teasing. I'll show them they shouldn't mess with me. I quickly found someone to help me plan my revenge against them. My name's Michelle Anderson, I'm 48 years old, and I work as a lawyer. Right now, I'm living with my husband and his parents, taking care of them. It all started when I gave a house to my in-laws. I married James when I was 30. Right before our wedding, my father-in-law got hurt and couldn't walk. He had to use a wheelchair, and my mother-in-law was old and needed help too. So, I gave them a house without barriers. At first, we thought about living in public housing, but then we chose a place in between where my husband and I worked. I suggested this so we could get to them fast if there was an emergency. The Anderson family helped me a lot with my dad. Let me repay the favor, I said. My dad passed away before I got married. Right before he died, he had a lot of debt, which made things really hard for us financially. We struggled getting more debt to pay off the old ones. My husband and his family were the ones who rescued us from this tough situation. James and his parents paid off my dad's debts for us. If you're worried about marrying because of the debt, wouldn't it be solved if we paid it off, said James. That's right, it's debt from a business failing, not from spending recklessly. We should help, added my mother-in-law. Yes, we should help each other out when times are tough. There's nothing to be embarrassed about, said my father-in-law. So they helped with most of the debt without saying much. Both my dad and I were really grateful, and I worked hard to pass the bar exam. The total borrowed from my husband's family was about $50,000. I was sure I could pay it back once I became a lawyer. I didn't want the debt hanging over me forever. My main goal was to pass the bar exam and become a lawyer, with a strong promise to pay back the money I owed. I kept studying hard to become a lawyer. With that determination, I buried myself in books, and after lots of effort, finally passed the bar exam. My dad and in-laws celebrated my success, and I was really happy to start my career in law. I found a job quickly and started working at a law firm. The boss was really nice, and I learned a lot from experienced lawyers, getting better at my job over time. Over time, I gained some special clients and now have an important job at the office as a female lawyer, making more than $100,000 a year. Because of my success, I managed to pay back all the money I owed to my dad and my in-laws. But after my mom died, my dad passed away soon after, leaving me alone. That's when James asked me to marry him. He said, "You're strong on your own, but I want to be the one who supports you. I'll always treasure you, so please marry me." His words convinced me, and we decided to get married, hoping for a happy life together. Around that time, sadly, my father-in-law had an accident. Remembering how kind they had been to me before, I offered to build them a new house without barriers. Even though they didn't want to accept, the gratitude I felt was too big to put into words. "Please don't say no. I want you all to live comfortably," I sincerely told them, not just saying it to be nice. They could tell I meant it, and with a small smile, they agreed. But then they added something. "Michelle, why don't you live with us too? We heard you and James are looking for a new house." "That's right. If you don't mind, let's live together. Eventually, this house will be yours." James has an older brother who moved out a few years ago to start his own business. He had an agreement with James that in exchange for taking care of their aging parents, James could use the family stuff freely. Before leaving, he talked to James about this. Moving to the new house would make my commute shorter, and we'd live with James and his parents. Since we could help each other when needed, there was no reason to say no to living together. But I worried I might cause trouble for my in-laws. Before getting married, I had occasionally caused trouble for them, so I worried if living together was right. James sensed my concerns and comforted me, saying, "Don't worry, Michelle. I'm here for you. Let's live together confidently." Encouraged by James, I agreed to live with my in-laws, hoping for a happy life with the four of us. But reality was different from what I expected. Every day, they would ask me for help with small things like finding clothes or fixing the TV remote. They seemed to rely on me for everything, especially my disabled father-in-law, who often touched me without hesitation. "I already hung up your morning clothes, Mom," I reminded her. "That's the air conditioner remote, not the DVD remote. It's on the desk, Dad. Please ask James for help with physical tasks when he's around. I can't always be there for you." I found myself saying these things every day. At first, I tried my best to fulfill the family's needs, even though I was already handling the mortgage and all the household chores. Sometimes I thought about getting a divorce, but James always handled things well, and my in-laws would apologize. Since I didn't feel mistreated, I usually decided not to divorce. Day-to-day life was filled with their dependence and small annoyances, but I felt a bond with them as family, which made me endure it. Still, the thought of divorce crossed my mind now and then. My mother-in-law started showing signs of memory loss, which might be mild dementia or just forgetfulness. It's hard to tell for sure. The questions from my mother-in-law kept increasing, and James, who had promised to help before we got married, turned out to be unreliable in this situation. Living with these uncertainties, I gradually got used to the situation. Through experience, I started handling everything on my own and began speaking up clearly to James and others. But my father-in-law's behavior bothered me a lot. I told James and my mother-in-law, "I can't ignore how father acts lately. He pretends to have dementia just to touch me, Mom. Please do something." The doctor said, "Your father-in-law hasn't been clearly diagnosed with dementia. His symptoms are mild, so it's not certain if it's dementia or not." But my in-laws insisted it was dementia, even though the doctor wasn't sure. I understood if it was really dementia, but using an illness as an excuse to make others tolerate bad behavior wasn't okay. I talked to James and asked my in-laws to address it, but James kept avoiding the issue. When I was almost at my breaking point, something unexpected happened. As I was organizing our finances one holiday afternoon, I saw something in the bank book that made me smile. By the end of that month, we would finally finish paying off the mortgage for my in-laws' house. Filled with a sense of accomplishment, I felt like a heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I was thrilled at the idea of having less financial strain and more money to spend freely, but little did I know, a new challenge was about to emerge. One evening during dinner with the family, James suddenly brought up the topic of the mortgage being paid off. "Michelle, the mortgage for this house will be fully paid off this month, right?" he asked out of the blue. Since he'd never mentioned the mortgage before, I was surprised by his sudden interest, but he smiled warmly as he poured beer into a glass. "Yes, that's correct. But why the sudden interest?" I asked. "Because we should celebrate, right? You've been through a lot, Michelle." "I want to thank you with a big celebration," James explained. His unexpected words touched me deeply. I was moved that James had considered my struggles and wanted to show his appreciation. Despite wishing he'd help more with household chores, I was grateful for his care and concern. His words instantly eased my frustrations, and I couldn't help but smile with joy. "James, thank you. Can I look forward to the celebration?" James said, "Sure, we'll talk about it together as a family and get ready. Just hold on, Michelle," feeling relieved by his words. I was excited about getting ready for the celebration, but that happy feeling didn't last. Soon, I realized something wasn't right. I accepted James' invitation without thinking too much. It seemed like my in-laws had also heard about the talk and were planning something together. A few weeks later, James and my in-laws asked to meet me. Since work wasn't too busy and I was in a good mood, It seemed like a perfect time for a celebration. Sorry for calling you in suddenly. We have something important to discuss, James said. It's fine, no worries, I replied. Today, we as a family need to talk to you about something important, Michelle, my father-in-law said. What's going on? I thought it was all about the celebration. So why were they sounding so serious? Hoping they just talk normally, I decided to listen. Well, now that the mortgage payments are ending, we want you to move out, they said. What? I couldn't help but sound surprised. They wanted me to leave once the mortgage was paid off. What did they mean? Was it a mistake? The unexpected words made me think it must be a mix-up. I couldn't understand what James was saying, and I couldn't find the right words to respond. I was just confused. Seeing me like that, my in-laws didn't want to wait for me to figure it out and started explaining. We sold this house to our oldest son and his wife. My father-in-law told me. What? I exclaimed, shocked to the core. My mind was spinning, struggling to grasp what was happening. To be suddenly told to leave the house, and on top of that, to learn that it had been handed over to James' older brother and his wife was beyond belief. What did all my efforts for this family mean now? Did this mean my role was over? But how? I couldn't accept this unfair and unreasonable situation. We have this beautiful house now. Your role here is no longer necessary. We tolerated you until the mortgage was paid off, but now the house belongs to us. You're no longer needed, my mother-in-law continued. I had lived in this house with James's family, feeling grateful towards them. Out of that gratitude, I stayed silent until now. But it hit me that it was all a charade. Even their help to my father and me was part of their plan to get something from me. Realizing this truth, I felt deeply betrayed and disappointed. Being suddenly estranged from a family I trusted was a crushing blow to my mental well-being. The trust I had built over the years shattered instantly. It felt like everything I believed in was just an illusion. My heart ached with the knowledge that they knew I was working hard to become a lawyer to clear my father's debts, so they took a chance, thinking the investment could pay off. It was a ploy to get me to buy the house. We thought we'd get a good return if we showed you kindness since you and James started dating. We figured the investment wouldn't go to waste, she added. When you were grateful for us helping your father and gave us expensive wine as a thank you, we thought you were easy, she continued. It was before my father's business went downhill. We used to be well off. James seemed interested in my family's wealth from the start. He must have seen an opportunity because he knew I wanted to become a lawyer. I trusted James and his family completely, without realizing how naive I was. That's why we came up with this plan. We hope to gain something big by helping your father, he said. Their confident and shocking statements were difficult for me to believe. So, it's worked out perfectly. We have a fantastic new house in our name, and once the mortgage is paid off, it's all ours. What we do with our property is none of your concern, they declared. Their words were full of planning and determination, and I struggled to accept the truth. It took me a while to realize that everything had been orchestrated from the start. For 13 years, they had been patiently waiting for this moment. They never truly cared for me or my father. We were just a means to an end. Their plan was to get close to our family right from the beginning, and we fell into their trap without realizing. Faced with this shocking revelation, darkness consumed my heart. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, drowning in despair. I couldn't grasp everything they had planned and executed, so outsiders should leave this house immediately. You have no place here anymore, their words cut even deeper into my wounded heart. Realizing I was no longer welcome in this house left me speechless. This place, once filled with peace, love, and warmth, now felt empty and cold. A chapter of my life had closed, and I was about to embark on a new lonely journey. Your belongings need to be packed, James. You can't leave immediately, or you'll be in trouble. Let's do it tomorrow. I'll give you until then to pack properly and leave, my mother-in-law declared. This house now belongs to the Anderson family, my father-in-law added. And I'll get the divorce sorted out. There's no point in us staying together anymore, and I'm tired of your complaints. Make sure you've signed the papers by the time you leave this house tomorrow, James said. The words Anderson family hit me hard. It was now crystal clear that I had never truly been accepted by them. Was I treated unfairly, forced to work tirelessly and juggle house chores and my job because I wasn't seen as part of the family? All my doubts blended together, leaving me with only a bitter smile. "I was fooled by your family right from the start," I whispered. "That's right. Are you stupid? Don't you understand?" James snapped. His words shattered something inside me. I lowered my gaze, then slowly lifted my head, forcing a smile as I gave an unexpected reply to my in-laws. "Then I'll leave," I said. My heart couldn't find a reason to stay with the Anderson family anymore. All those days were filled with deceit. From now on, my life will take a new path. As I suddenly showed a cheerful face and decided to leave the house without a heavy heart, my in-laws couldn't hide their surprise. "Quite obedient, aren't you? Got something up your sleeve?" my mother-in-law asked suspiciously. "No plans," I replied. Hearing such an unbelievable story, I felt like my life had hit rock bottom, and my love for their family disappeared in an instant. "I'll pack up my things right away and leave. I'll sign the divorce papers properly. My lawyer will get in touch with you about dividing the property. Goodbye and thank you for everything," I said without waiting for my in-laws' response. I went back to my room and packed my belongings, holding back my tears as I planned my next steps. After being treated so badly, I couldn't just let it go quietly. I couldn't find peace until they felt the pain, suffering, and unfairness I had endured. While packing, I calmly thought of ways to get back at them. I planned carefully how to hurt them the most. Many ideas crossed my mind as I considered my next moves. My anger and disappointment towards my in-laws were overwhelming, but I stayed composed, searching for the best way to handle the situation. My revenge had to be more than just emotional. They needed to understand the consequences of their actions. My new life started there. While packing, my phone rang suddenly. Seeing the caller's name, a plan formed in my mind. I was sure this person would support me, so I answered without hesitation. After explaining my situation, the caller listened carefully and we promptly made a plan for the future. Once I finished packing, I quietly left the house I had lived in for years, without saying a word to James and his family. I decided to cut all ties with them, so I deleted their contacts from my phone, determined not to respond to any communication from them. My decision soon paid off. The day after I left, I received numerous frantic calls from my in-laws. Although I had deleted their numbers, their long association weighed heavily on my mind. That morning, they must have realized I had left and understood what had happened. However, I had no intention of answering their calls. As I looked at my phone, I felt a sense of empowerment over my decision and smiled lightly. At that moment, the person who had provided me with a new place to live reassured me, saying, "You won't have to answer the phone at all." I gratefully nodded at his words. I was ready to take the first step towards a fresh start. My life was about to begin a new chapter in a new environment. As the calls from my mother-in-law ceased, James began bombarding me with his own calls. Each one felt like unbearable noise. Finally, unable to take it anymore, I turned off my phone and, without turning it back on, canceled the service. It was a clear message that I was ending things with James. 3 months went by, and I had started a new life in a fresh apartment, away from the stress of living with my in-laws. I could focus more on my work, and my daily life became more satisfying. I embraced life to the fullest, free from the constraints of the past. People noticed a change in me post-divorce. I radiated happiness, and my demeanor became more cheerful and friendly. This transformation didn't go unnoticed, and I received many compliments. Despite the mental strain from my past relationship with my in-laws, I decided to nurture my relationships with colleagues at work and foster positive connections. I resolved to put more effort into my job and prioritize communication with my coworkers. As I made this decision, the receptionist at my office appeared on the floor in a panic, urgently informing me, "Miss Cohen, there's a parent and child at the reception looking for you." Cohen was my maiden name, which I retained after the divorce. Hearing her report, I hurried to the reception to find out what was going on. The usually composed receptionist's agitation signaled that something was amiss. Something significant must have caused her distress. Seeing her worried expression, I wanted to offer support, and a male colleague, sensing her state, volunteered to accompany me. Together, we made our way to the lobby. Upon arrival, my expression shifted dramatically as I laid eyes on who was there. My mother-in-law and James. They were causing a scene, loudly berating me for cutting off contact. Their irrational behavior left me stunned and questioning. Others in the office couldn't hide their shock at their actions. Their worn-out appearances, filled with anger, stood out after months of absence. Recognizing the abnormal situation, the reception staff alerted upper management, and soon the office manager appeared in the lobby. "Miss Cohen, a meeting room is ready. Shall we have a discussion there with your in-laws?" "I'll inform him," the manager suggested. Having already briefed the manager on everything, I agreed to the suggestion. Feeling uneasy about going alone, I brought my colleague with me. He was the lawyer I had hired for the matter with James, so they allowed his presence. Heading to the meeting room, I tried to suppress my confusion and agitation. Despite my inner turmoil and anxiety about what lay ahead, I found some relief in the manager's calm demeanor and resolved to proceed step by step. As we walked to the meeting room, my mother-in-law and James glared at me with anger. Despite their dire situation, they seemed displeased to see me thriving at work. Their gaze and attitude left no doubt about their feelings. Sitting across from my in-laws, we exchanged tense glances, and then the manager entered the meeting room with someone else. "Sorry I'm late." "What? Why are you here?" The person the manager brought was James's brother, my brother-in-law. He stood there, glaring at the two with an angry expression. "There's nothing to say. You guys have really done something ridiculous. My brother-in-law used to be a gang leader in his youth, but now runs his own construction company. His employees call him boss, and he can't stand unjust behavior. When I lost my place to live, he helped me out for several weeks in a women's dormitory. He was already aware of the situation with my in-laws' house and, after hearing the details, offered his support right away. Why didn't he know when my in-laws told me to leave the house? They said they had sold it to their eldest son and his wife. I found out everything from Susan and confirmed it. You didn't think you could do such a horrible thing to Michelle and get away with it, did you?" As soon as Susan's name was mentioned, James and his mother looked astonished. Susan, his wife and the mastermind behind this incident, had always harbored hostility towards me. Despite my brother-in-law's wishes, she had been a housewife up to this point. It wasn't my brother-in-law's instruction, but her own decision. She believed women were meant to be homemakers, as her own parents had been. So housekeeping was natural for her, and she saw women who defied this as not real women. When Susan saw me, she probably viewed me with envy. My dedication to work for nearly 40 years might have seemed dazzling to her. Additionally, Susan wasn't skilled at cooking. Even my brother-in-law and father-in-law had asked my mother-in-law to teach her, as I had heard from James. On the other hand, I managed household chores well while balancing my job. Perhaps she envied my ability to handle everything efficiently. Every time Susan encountered me, she made snide remarks. She accused me of neglecting household duties or leaving them to my husband, hurling harsh words at me for decades. However, my brother-in-law always intervened, which likely added to Susan's dissatisfaction. He supported Susan's desire to work and helped with household tasks. Susan's inaction in improving her situation was her own choice, and it was unfair for her to take out her frustrations on others. When my brother-in-law warned Susan, she redirected her discontent towards me. Susan confessed that she had orchestrated the entire plan to take over the house and pressure me into buying it. She manipulated my mother-in-law and father-in-law to execute this scheme. They'd probably believed they could obtain their own house and continue pretending to be senile, leaving me unable to object. They had found ways to orchestrate the plan without involving my brother-in-law, whom they couldn't contact because of Susan. James had also accepted a reward for assisting them in this scheme, making them all accomplices. The only person unaware was my brother-in-law, who would have stopped such foolish actions if he had known. This likely filled him with regret, explaining why everyone behaved timidly whenever he visited. When my brother-in-law came over, my parents-in-law didn't take any action, likely fearing the consequences if he found out about the situation. The manager and my colleagues watched my in-laws with astonishment. "So, how do we proceed?" "I have no intention of forgiving even a fraction of the insult I received, let alone the trouble caused to Michelle," I stated firmly. But it was Susan's suggestion," James protested. "That's right. We were just misled by clever words. It wasn't intentional," my mother-in-law added. At James' statement, my patience wore thin. I stood up, my face burning with anger, and yelled at my mother-in-law and James. "How can you claim innocence after such a betrayal? Do you have any idea how much pain I've endured in these 13 years? My suppressed emotions burst forth, and tears of anger and frustration streamed down my cheeks. My mother-in-law and James had never seen me cry before, no matter the hardship I faced. Even when my father-in-law was wrongly considered senile and acted recklessly, I never shed a tear. In their eyes, I was always a strong woman who never faltered. Seeing me raise my voice and cry must have been shocking for them. Do you realize how grateful I was to you? How much I wanted to repay you? And now to discover that your care for my father was driven by such selfish motives. I may forgive you, but I will never forget. With those words as a cue, my brother-in-law brought someone into the meeting room, a man in a black suit. He sat opposite us, his gaze fixed on my in-laws. "You will have to take responsibility for this," he declared. Faced with this unexpected turn of events, my mother-in-law exclaimed in surprise. "This man is my lawyer, hired by my brother-in-law. He is a respected attorney in our office, like a mentor to me. We intend to seek compensation for the unfair treatment I've endured," I explained. "What do you mean?" "It's pointless to dwell on the past now," James argued. "The past is irrelevant now." The lawyer, who had been quietly listening to my in-laws, adjusted his glasses and calmly refuted them. "The current evidence and the basis for the future claim of damages make the lawsuit fully feasible, especially since there was no agreement not to claim property at the time of the divorce. In this case, there is no specific time limit for claiming compensation." As he spoke, the lawyer took out a SSD from his pocket, leaving my in-laws confused. "What is that?" my mother-in-law asked. "This is the record Michelle has been keeping. Her PC was equipped with a camera for remote meetings, and all your wrongful actions have been saved as data," the lawyer explained. My in-laws' expressions turned pale upon learning this truth. "Michelle mostly worked in the living room, didn't she? Modern laptops often have built-in cameras, and your harassment in the living room has backfired," the lawyer said before pocketing the SSD. He then turned to my in-laws, stating firmly, "The ownership of the house is already in Michelle's name, and your eviction is just a matter of time. We will proceed with legal action promptly, so please prepare the funds." "Wait, you're saying it's changed to her name?" James reacted to the lawyer's statement. In response, my brother-in-law raised his voice. "I asked Michelle to change the ownership to her name. Thanks to you putting it in Susan's name without permission, the change was surprisingly easy. Anything to say about that?" My brother-in-law taunted James with a mischievous smile. James, who had never won a fight against his brother since childhood, couldn't argue back, and my mother-in-law also remained silent. "I will also properly bill you for all the expenses involved in that transfer. That's only fair, right? After all, it was your wrongful actions. If you don't deal with what you've started, we'll be in trouble too," said my brother-in-law, folding his arms and standing imposingly. "Wait, you're saying it's changed to her name?" he added sternly, throwing the words at them. The two were left speechless before my brother-in-law's firm demeanor. He had also informed Susan, his wife and the mastermind behind this ordeal, about the situation. After resolving this matter, he expressed his intention to divorce her over the phone. "I'm really sorry for involving you in this, Michelle. Even though I didn't know, I will support you fully until you are satisfied. Let me know any requests you have. It's my family who did this, so I have a responsibility too." My brother-in-law apologized sincerely, and I nodded in gratitude. This outcome was a significant achievement for me, especially considering that the maximum amount for moral harassment compensation is usually around $30,000. I felt nothing but gratitude. Fortunately, the house was returned to my possession within a few days. With my brother-in-law's supervision, the furniture and appliances were also moved back, and everything was successfully recovered. Currently, the house is being used as a rental property. It's too big for me, and with its good location and accessible features, it seemed wasteful not to utilize it. Following my brother-in-law's advice, I started renting it out. Susan is busy with work, trying to pay off her debts. Following my brother-in-law's instructions, she works tirelessly from morning till night, and my mother-in-law and James are in similar situations. My father-in-law, unable to work due to his disability, contributes from his pension towards the debt repayment, and they seem to be leading a challenging life. I feel relief knowing my brother-in-law is a reliable person. Years have passed since then, and I continue my work as a lawyer. Thanks to my brother-in-law, the monthly payments are going smoothly, and it's expected to be paid off by next year. Despite often contemplating giving up amidst the hardships, I held on to the belief that my efforts would be rewarded someday. That belief has become a reality, and I live each day with gratitude. 3 years ago, Nick tied the knot with Jolie. Frankly, had it not been for her unexpected inheritance of the family business following her father's untimely demise, Nick might never have walked down the aisle with her. Mr. Rigmillan, once robust and seemingly invincible, succumbed to a sudden stroke, leaving Jolie as his sole heir. Nick, a charming but idle individual accustomed to leeching off women, couldn't help but take notice. Jolie, swayed by Nick's smooth talk and promises, fell under his spell, while Nick saw in her a golden opportunity, his plan to buy his time until something more lucrative came along. As luck would have it, Jolie's inheritance turned out to be the golden ticket Nick had been waiting for. With her newfound wealth, she became his jackpot. Nick, confident in his ability to manipulate her growing affection, envisioned controlling her fortune for his own gain. Initially, Nick's scheme unfolded smoothly. Jolie, engulfed in grief over her father's passing, leaned on Nick for support, oblivious to his ulterior motives. Nick seized the moment, showering Jolie with care and attention during her time of need, all the while concealing his true intentions. He kept up his facade until they exchanged vows, ensuring there was no turning back. After the funeral, Nick proposed marriage, suggesting they wait until Jolie had mourned her father properly. However, when Jolie questioned the necessity of a prenuptial agreement, Nick's true colors began to emerge. "Nick, is this just a business move?" Jolie queried, echoing the sentiments of Mr. Chinland, her father's trusted advisor. "It's humiliating." "Do you think I'm only after your money?" she protested. Nick, taken aback by her defiance, responded defensively, "Honey, it's merely a precaution. We need it just in case. My godfather insists on it. He's always looked out for me, like a second father." Though Jolie's understanding of financial matters might have been lacking due to her privileged upbringing, she possessed a tenacity that transcended her naivety. When she set her sights on a goal, she pursued it relentlessly. Nick, finding himself backed into a corner, begrudgingly acquiesced to all of Mr. Chin's conditions. While the terms of the marriage contract seemed standard, they effectively stripped Nick of any entitlements. It was abundantly clear that Jolie's inherited business and assets would remain solely hers. Nick had assumed he'd have a share in the dividends and the opportunity to amass new wealth. However, the meticulous contract drawn up by a top-tier lawyer dashed those hopes. Despite this setback, Nick convinced himself that the marriage still held benefits. He saw it as a means to tap into his wife's finances without oversight, building his own capital for the future. He planned to siphon money from their joint budget daily, funneling it into his own accounts. Yet Nick's optimism was misplaced once again. Mr. Chinland, a principled and responsible figure, not only oversaw Jolie's business finances but also controlled her personal wealth. Nick found himself restricted in his personal spending, but he remained hopeful, anticipating how the situation might unfold. His patience was eventually rewarded. Despite their efforts, Jolie struggled to conceive, her desire for motherhood overshadowed by repeated disappointment. Initially attributing it to stress, she eventually sought medical intervention after over a year of failed attempts, uncovering the underlying cause of their struggles. Jolie's symptoms, initially dismissed as mere consequences of her busy lifestyle, were ominous signs that her body was in distress, a warning she had chosen to ignore. Eventually, the grim truth emerged. She was diagnosed with cancer. Over nearly 2 grueling years, she endured treatments and suffering with little to show for it. Throughout this ordeal, Nick's role as a husband was merely nominal. His vested interest lay in Jolie's existence being inconsequential, a fact he failed to conceal adequately. While the topic remained unspoken, Jolie couldn't ignore the whispers of her husband's infidelities with numerous other women. Nick, however, fancied himself a master of deception and manipulation. He believed he could convincingly play the part of the devoted spouse to a dying wife without raising suspicion. He considered himself fortunate, convinced that enduring a little longer would secure his desired outcome. Yet Nick's reprehensible conduct became the subject of condemnation and gossip among nurses, hospital staff, and even Mr. Chinland. The latter was both furious and helpless, unable to comprehend Jolie's insistence on preserving a marriage teetering on the brink. Furthermore, the absence of a will left him deeply concerned, as it meant Nick would automatically inherit everything as Jolie's sole heir. That scoundrel stands to inherit everything, including the fruits of Jolie and her father's hard work. It would render everything they've built futile, Mr. Chinland lamented. The elderly man found himself grappling with the delicate task of broaching a sensitive subject with his goddaughter, who, until just yesterday, had exuded health and vitality but now faced an inevitable decline. With each passing moment, her time grew shorter, measured not in months but in weeks. Meanwhile, Nick's anticipation burned bright, his greedy ambitions unmasked in his eager demeanor. He saw in Jolie's looming demise not just tragedy but opportunity, a chance to rid himself of his ailing wife and secure a substantial windfall. Mr. Chinlin silently prayed that he wouldn't have to initiate the discussion about Jolie's will himself. Fortunately, his concerns were unfounded. Jolie took the initiative, revealing a secret plan that left him speechless. Her meticulous plotting, executed with a finesse and ruthlessness he never anticipated, served as a chilling reminder that revenge truly is a dish best served cold. Though Jolie's scheme required little time and effort to devise and execute, it marked the culmination of her earthly journey, allowing her to realize her deepest desires. Sadly, her loved ones did not witness a miraculous recovery. Instead, they bid farewell to Jolie as she passed away, her funeral arrangements meticulously planned and communicated with serene determination, ensuring her final wishes were carried out with precision. The day following the somber farewell ceremony, the notary summoned those named in Jolie's will for its official reading. Nick was taken aback by the unexpected news. He had been convinced that his wife had not taken the precaution of drafting such a document, assuming he would naturally inherit everything, as the law often dictates in such circumstances. Nonetheless, clinging to a glimmer of hope, he reluctantly attended the meeting, accompanied by his new mistress, the stunning Shirley. Upon entering the notary's office, Nick was surprised to find Mr. Chinland and Jolie's friend, Kurt Turgan, in attendance. However, what truly caught him off guard was the sight of Kurt pushing a stroller containing a baby boy. Despite being aware of Kurt's marital status and recent parenthood, Nick's astute instincts quickly pieced together the puzzle, revealing a hidden agenda at play, a realization that left him feeling outwitted. Nevertheless, curiosity compelled Nick to stay and discover the contents of Jolie's will, despite his growing apprehension about its potential humiliation. For what felt like an eternity, silence enveloped the room as each individual occupied their own corner, waiting in tense anticipation. No further attendees arrived, leaving the notary to prolong the preamble, emphasizing the solemnity of the occasion and the honor of carrying out the deceased's final wishes. Even then, Nick could discern from the wicked grin etched on Mr. Chinland's face that the contents of the will were a clandestine affair reserved solely for him. Finally, Nick's name was called. "To my lawful husband Nick, I deny the inheritance," declared the notary, the words ringing with a stark finality. As the brief yet impactful sentence echoed in the room, the notary turned to Nick, prompting him to confirm his understanding of its significance. With a heavy heart and a sense of profound humiliation, Nick could only nod in acquiescence. In that moment, Shirley reached for his hand, ready to defiantly depart, but Nick firmly kept her in place, ignoring her questioning gaze. Though every fiber of his being urged him to flee from the scene of his public disgrace, the drama was far from over, and the invited spectators demanded closure. With a measured pause, the notary continued. "I bequeath all my personal property to my only son, Robert Turgis, until he reaches adulthood. I appoint his father, Kurt Turgan, and Mr. Chinland as guardians and administrators of his estate," announced the notary, dropping a bombshell that reverberated through Nick like a devastating blow to the gut. The revelation of Kurt's paternity shattered Nick's patience, eliciting a shocked cry of disbelief. Yet, aside from Nick and Shirley, the revelation elicited no surprise from the assembled witnesses. "Is the boy Jolie's biological child?" Nick's voice trembled as he gasped for breath, his words punctuated by desperation. "Yes, Robert is the biological son of Jolie and Kurt," Mr. Chinland confirmed, his tone resolute. "She hasn't been pregnant in the last 2 years. It's impossible." Nick grasped at straws, though he knew all too well that modern science had rendered pregnancy unnecessary for parenthood. "The marvels of medical progress never cease to amaze," Mr. Chinland remarked, observing the unfolding scene with a mix of pity and detachment. For Kurt, the memories of 2 years prior flooded back, a chilling reminder of the moment he learned of his best friend's grim prognosis. He marveled at her composure as she calmly discussed her limited time and her unwavering determination to fulfill her maternal longing. "I had my eggs preserved before beginning treatment," she had revealed, her resolve unyielding in the face of adversity. "I was told that I probably wouldn't be able to raise my own child, but I insisted, Kurt. I grew up without a mother, and I know it isn't easy, but I always felt her love and protection. Does Nick agree to raise the child alone? Kurt cautiously inquired. Who would allow him? He would gladly become a guardian and use the baby's money, as he lacks conscience, Jolie replied bitterly. No, I've already realized that my dear spouse is someone of questionable character, to put it correctly, and his reaction to my diagnosis and prognosis. I don't even want to speak about him. This man isn't worth getting upset about. And what of the baby? That's what I wanted to discuss with you. Jolie hesitated, a rare moment of uncertainty for her fearless demeanor. I don't know how to broach the subject delicately. Maybe there is no delicate way. In short, I would like you to be the father of my child, she exclaimed in a high-pitched voice. Are you joking? You have a husband. Kurt clearly wasn't prepared for this sudden proposition. Yes, I do have a husband, and I will have him until the day I die. I've already made that decision, Kurt. Of course, we won't sleep together. It's impossible given my current condition. I can't carry the baby myself. Unfortunately, I have my eggs preserved. Now we need the biological material from the future father. Naturally, I also need a woman to carry and give birth to him, but luckily, such services are available now. Initially dismissing it as absurd, Kurt soon realized that Jolie's plan was meticulously thought out, with every detail carefully considered. She had already undertaken extensive preparatory work, delving into the legal aspects, arranging for services at a reproductive clinic, and even securing a surrogate mother for the future baby. Kurt, I could use the services of a donor for the father for the baby. I really want to leave a piece of myself behind. But when you think about it, who will the baby be with? I've been thinking a lot, but you're the only one I can rely on. I am sure of you, knowing you for so many years. I believe that you will be a great father. I understand that you want to create your own family, get married, and have children naturally. It's logical. But please think about it. Don't answer me right now. For me, after what happened with Nick, it is critical that the father of my child is someone who doesn't prioritize money, someone who won't exploit my assets. I'm not as naive as I was before marriage. Nick taught me a lot. Now I have a lot of life experience. As for you, you don't need any money at all. You have plenty. My father has the money, Kurt interjected, correcting Jolie's line of reasoning for the first time. You know you're going to get it. You work tirelessly to keep the family company thriving. You've never been needy. Now I know for a fact that a man who grew up poor will never stop thinking about having enough to eat. And if his decency is also lacking, there will be a big problem. I have experienced that firsthand, Jolie sadly added. To be honest, I'm completely confused. I had an entirely different idea of becoming a father. I need to consult my parents, understand that I can't make such a decision alone. I will need the help of close family members when I become a father, so I have to inform them and ask for their opinion. Jolie had no objections, but she requested that Kurt promise to keep their arrangement a secret. The conversation with Kurt's parents proved challenging. His father remained neutral, accepting the situation and promising to support his son's decision and assist with his grandchild as much as possible. His mother, however, struggled with the idea. Like any mother, she wished for her son to marry and have children with a good woman. While she held Jolie in high regard and felt immense sympathy for her, the thought of her potential grandchild being born to another woman, especially with Jolie's illness, was difficult for her to accept. Could the child inherit the disease, she asked, the question lingering uncomfortably in the air. Though hesitant to broach such a sensitive topic, she couldn't ignore the potential risks to her grandchild's health. Jolie does not have a hereditary form of the disease, Kurt reassured her, alleviating some of her anxiety, though not entirely. After careful consideration, she expressed her support for her son's decision, albeit with lingering concerns. Kurt himself grappled with uncertainty. Jolie's proposal had caught him off guard, but after much contemplation, he found no reason to refuse. When he conveyed his approval to Jolie, she was overjoyed, and they began to execute her plan methodically. As Kurt reflected on the profound changes unfolding in his life, Mr. Chinlin reminisced about his conversation with Jolie just over 2 months prior. Beginning with expressions of her respect and admiration for him as a father figure, she eventually revealed her request for him to become her son's guardian. Initially dismissing it as delirium, Mr. Chinland was left in shock as Jolie detailed the entirety of her plan. Not only had she and Kurt made a bold decision, but they had also managed to keep it hidden for so long. How old is the baby now? Mr. Chinland inquired. Robert is 8 months old. Jolie beamed. You both truly know how to surprise, Mr. Chinlin remarked, still reeling from the shock. I don't want Nick to find out about the child until after I'm gone. He'll only learn of it when my will is read. It's already been drawn up, and is in the hands of the notary. However, there's one aspect we still need to address. Robert will only have one legal guardian. Upon reevaluating many aspects of my life, I've decided not to leave anything to chance. Kurt has parents, so if anything were to happen to him, Robert would go to them. But I want you to have legal rights as well. Just in case. With his keen understanding of people, the elderly man recognized the potential danger in confronting Nick directly, even though Jolie's husband undoubtedly deserved such treatment. In the hushed atmosphere of the notary's office, everyone was lost in their own thoughts. It was clear to see that Nick was cursing Jolie in every possible manner. People like him often fail to grasp that their own actions may have provoked such responses. Introspection of that kind is often too complex for individuals like him. Why bother looking for faults within oneself? Strangely enough, it was Shirley who broke the silence. She attempted to guide her lover out by the elbow. But Nick had no intention of leaving, feeling compelled to voice his grievances. Are you certain I'm entitled to nothing? No obligatory share or whatever it's called? I am her husband after all. Nick's voice rose in protest. As per the will, you're not listed among the beneficiaries entitled to an obligatory share of the inheritance. Furthermore, I've meticulously reviewed your marriage contract. Its contents are enclosed here. The notary indicated the hefty folder before him with a firm tap. You have slim chances even with a legal challenge, though you naturally retain the right to pursue such action. I'll contest it. Who is this illegitimate child anyway? And who's to say he's really her son? Nick's outburst escalated, oblivious to the weight of his words. Kurt struggled to contain his anger, fighting the urge to strike the arrogant man. Even the typically composed Mr. Chinlin flushed with indignation. Only the notary remained as composed as ever, treating the situation as just another day at the office, unfazed by the drama unfolding before him. Can I see? Nick demanded to examine the evidence. No. You're only entitled to review the portion relevant to you. All other documents, particularly those concerning the child, can only be disclosed with the parent's consent. Naturally, the notary clarified. I do not consent, Kurt interjected firmly. So, access to those documents would only be possible through a court proceeding if the court deems it necessary to request them. That was the breaking point. Nick stormed out of the office, slamming the door behind him, determined not to let the matter rest. His mistress, however, bid farewell politely and exited quietly, closing the door behind her. Does it matter that he didn't sign the will? Mr. Chinlin inquired of the notary. There are many like him. It's merely a formality, the notary reassured him. It's almost comical if it weren't so tragic. I still can't fathom how Jolie got mixed up with him. Mr. Chinlin mused aloud, his thoughts lingering in the air as a rhetorical question. With the required paperwork swiftly signed and hands shaken, Mr. Chinlin assisted Kurt in settling little Robert into the stroller. Would you care to join us? I could use some fresh air, and it's good for the baby, Kurt invited. Certainly, I'll join you for a while. They walked in silence, the gentle rustle of the stroller wheels providing a soothing backdrop. Do you think Jolie would approve of how I'm handling everything? Kurt finally voiced the question that had been weighing on his mind. I'm certain she would. You're proving to be a remarkable father, and the bond between you and Robert is undeniable, Jolie's godfather reassured him. Truth be told, there's something that's been nagging at me. You know, I have a feeling Jolie mentioned to you that I had advised against what transpired at the notary's office, Mr. Chinlin brought up. Are you referring to the whole debacle with the will and Nick finding out about Robert? Mr. Chinlin nodded in acknowledgement. Of course, Kurt replied. I was the one who constantly brought up the conversation about that. I didn't like this idea from the very beginning. He's a nasty type, angry, stupid, and mercenary. Why provoke him? Honestly, I even contemplated telling him when the baby was already born. But Jolie was so adamant about keeping it a secret, I felt I had no right to interfere. I thought perhaps she just didn't want to deal with him herself and left these disputes to us. Seeing him today with that woman, shamelessly flaunting it, makes me question whether I made the right decision by not standing my ground. His reaction, the look on his face, it was chilling. Maybe it would have been better to confront him earlier. I believe Jolie didn't want to either. That played a part too, and the desire for revenge. She wanted to get back at him because she loved, regardless of what she claimed later. She loved deeply, and this corrupted love left her no other recourse. My poor girl, the elderly man wiped away a tear trickling down his cheek. Don't grieve for her. She asked us not to. She asked us to direct all our love, which was for her, to Robbie. Kurt comforted Jolie's godfather, while the others reminisced. Meanwhile, Nick and Shirley observed from the car, discussing the same topic. So you won't get anything at all, huh? The girl asked incredulously, blinking rapidly. You're such a fool. You heard there's no chance because of this baby. All right, let's go. We need to salvage at least something valuable and move it to my place. 3 days later, Kurt finally gathered the courage to visit Jolie's house, only to find it deserted. He had prepared himself for a confrontation, even hiring 2 security guards for protection. But Nick had anticipated his move and already absconded with plenty of valuables. Now Nick sat alone in the cramped confines of his tiny apartment, nursing a dwindling glass of whiskey that Shirley had left him, a predictable gesture. Why would she need a loser like me? Nick mused, reflecting on how he had ended up in this dismal state. Once, women paid him for his company, but now he found himself offering money to a young, beautiful girl just to keep her around. Ironically, Nick, a gigolo past his prime, withered by his vices, refused to shoulder the blame for his circumstances. In his mind, his wife was the villain who had drained him of vitality and crushed his dreams, leaving him without the inheritance he had so eagerly anticipated. In his fantasies, he was young, handsome, successful, and fabulously wealthy. Yet Shirley's parting words had shattered these illusions. He was nothing more than a destitute drunkard lost in delusions of grandeur. Accepting this reality was a bitter pill to swallow. His grand visions of wealth and success, hinging largely on his ex-wife, crumbled like a house of cards. His aspirations of becoming a successful entrepreneur were dashed. Blinded by his pride, he failed to acknowledge his own role in his downfall. Instead, he directed his resentment towards his late wife, seeing her as the source of all his woes. For nearly 2 weeks, Nick drowned himself in a haze of alcohol, seeking solace from his harsh reality, his bitterness festering with each passing day. Then, one bleak morning, gripped by a pounding hangover, he reached a breaking point. He realized that drowning his sorrows in alcohol wouldn't bring him success or vengeance against Jolie. Nick felt a profound sense of humiliation. A few days prior, representatives from Mr. Chinlin had appeared, practically strong-arming Nick into surrendering his car keys and tearing up the power of attorney that Jolie had granted him. Did you not realize that the power of attorney loses its legal validity after the death of the grantor? One of the men remarked, his tone dripping with disdain. In Nick's mind, he painted himself as a saint who had never left his ailing wife's side. Conveniently, he brushed aside his own endless scheming, gambling habits, alcohol abuse, and dismissive treatment of his wife. How unfortunate that she's dead and I can't lash out at her, he had thought countless times. I barely suppressed my urge, convincing myself that my patience would be richly rewarded. Now, as he contemplated his next move, thoughts of revenge consumed him. Initially, he had entertained the idea of desecrating her grave. But upon reflection, considering what was most precious to Jolie and what would inflict the deepest anguish, he stumbled upon another answer. Robert. A surge of electricity coursed through Nick as this idea took hold in his mind. He chuckled maliciously, finally concocting his revenge plot. While many details needed ironing out, he had settled on one crucial point: he would not harm Robert. What's a mother's worst nightmare? Not being able to protect her child in times of trouble. That's precisely the fate he planned for. His imagination was ablaze with a simple yet sinister plan: to abduct the baby, whisk him away to a distant location, and abandon him at an orphanage. After a week of dwelling on thoughts of revenge, Nick found solace and satisfaction in his fantasies, if one could call them that. He hadn't smiled like this in ages. Granted, the grimace he wore might have been unsettling to some, but Jolie's husband cared little for appearances. In fact, you could say he was elated as he meticulously plotted every detail. He reveled in a sense of euphoria. Although his target was out of sight, Nick savored the mental image of Jolie's anguish at her inability to protect her child. Once he had outlined his plan in theory, Nick shifted his focus to practicalities. He needed to gather intelligence on Robert's movements and the people he encountered outside the house to pinpoint the perfect time and place for his crime. Having known Kurt well in the past, and even having visited his parents' house, Nick was aware of their affluent suburban community and its heightened security. As he delved deeper into his scheme, he became acutely aware of the obstacles he would face. He couldn't predict how long he'd spend surveilling from the cover of the forest, peering through binoculars, studying the child's routines and activities. Was the risk worth the reward? Without a doubt, Nick reasoned with himself. His mental state had deteriorated significantly since the reading of the will. "She destroyed my life, and I'll destroy her child's," he muttered maliciously. In his twisted fantasies, Nick envisioned himself as a wealthy heir living off the state's provisions, while his deceased mother looked on from the afterlife, bearing the weight of blame for his misdeeds. His laughter echoed with malice, a chilling sound that would have alarmed any bystander with a shred of empathy. But history does not entertain what-ifs, and Nick was left unchecked in his pursuit of his dark ambitions. Once he set his mind on a goal, no matter how sinister, he pursued it relentlessly to its conclusion. For 2 full days, Nick didn't just watch but meticulously prepared the groundwork for his scheme. He scoured the entire area, seeking the perfect vantage point that would afford him an unobstructed view of the settlement, particularly the Turgis household, while keeping him concealed. He poured all his energy and time into finding the ideal spot, ensuring it met his stringent criteria. Day after day, he rose with the dawn, immersing himself in surveillance at the cottage settlement until nightfall. With binoculars in hand, he meticulously documented every movement, noting arrivals and departures with unwavering diligence. Through his observations, Nick learned that the child was under the care of Kurt's grandmother and a nanny. Both Kurt and his mother were unsuitable targets for Nick's plans. It would recognize him immediately. Nick had no intention of facing consequences for his actions. Anticipating police inquiries, he aimed to deflect suspicion away from himself. Thus, he identified the nanny as the target of his scheme. She followed a predictable schedule, walking with Robert along familiar routes at set times. Luck seemed to smile upon Nick when, on a Wednesday, the nanny ventured beyond the settlement's secured confines for a daytime stroll with the sleeping baby. She followed a forest path to a clearing where she met another nanny from a neighboring settlement, her laughter carrying through the air. Recognizing an opportunity, Nick decided to limit his visits to the settlement to Wednesdays, minimizing the risk of drawing attention to himself. His plan was meticulous, akin to a well-oiled machine. Each Wednesday, like clockwork, the nanny ventured into the forest. For 4 consecutive weeks, Nick observed this routine, ensuring its consistency. As the 4th Wednesday approached, he knew the time had come to execute his sinister plan, confident in its precision and success. He acquired a potent stun gun from a local market, exchanging cash to evade detection. Every aspect of his plan was meticulously arranged to minimize the risk of capture. Securing an old car, he appropriated license plates, ensuring they were affixed inconspicuously. He strategically positioned the vehicle for a swift getaway, yet far enough to evade suspicion. Disguising his appearance was paramount, taking precautions to obscure his features and physique to evade identification. Obsessed with thoughts of kidnapping, he became consumed by them, even dreaming of the deed in vivid detail. As the fateful day drew near, he shed nearly 7 kilograms, a physical manifestation of his preoccupation. A haunting aura of neurosis and fixation began to manifest in his countenance, a visible testament to his unraveling psyche. On the appointed Wednesday, he parked in his chosen spot, his nerves taut with anticipation. As he spied the nanny guiding the stroller down the path, a tremor of apprehension coursed through him. The meticulous planning had insulated him from the grim reality of his impending actions. He was poised to confront a stranger, to assault her with a stun gun, and to wrest the child from the safety of the stroller, all in a desperate bid to enact his vengeful scheme. Reality shattered his preconceived notions, starkly contrasting the simulated scenarios of his imagination. Here, everything was palpably real. The unsuspecting woman, the innocent child nestled in the stroller, his gaze filled with innocent wonder. Nick was not inherently predisposed to violence, but his festering animosity towards Jolie propelled him across the threshold of moral restraint. Approaching the nanny, he forcefully pushed her away from the stroller, causing her to stumble and fall. He then unleashed the taser's jolt upon her, rendering her unconscious with a single shock. With trembling hands, he moved to extract the child from the confines of the stroller, his heart racing with adrenaline-fueled urgency. Yet, his meticulously crafted scheme was abruptly derailed. As he leaned down to undo the child's restraints, A sudden blow struck his head, sending him reeling to the ground in a dizzying haze of confusion. The next thing Nick knew, he found himself subdued by an elderly man standing over him, scolding Nick while deftly binding his hands. Nick's consciousness slipped away once more. It turned out that the mysterious figure was none other than Mr. Mayo, a respected gamekeeper renowned in the nearby elite communities. His guardhouse, nestled inconspicuously amidst dense foliage, overlooked a clearing frequented by nannies from neighboring settlements, unbeknownst to Nick on that fateful day. Mr. Mayo had been returning from a local errand when he caught sight of suspicious activity. "I spotted someone, cloaked in black despite the morning heat, stationed as a lookout. I decided to observe and investigate," he recounted later to the police. With years of experience navigating the forest, Mr. Mayo adeptly maneuvered without disturbing the wildlife. "I concealed myself behind a tree, keeping vigilant watch. Suddenly, I witnessed a man assaulting a woman, knocking her to the ground. Initially, I feared for her safety, but it became clear he was targeting the child. Acting swiftly, I intervened, striking him with a makeshift cudgel I had prepared," Mr. Mayo elaborated. "Exceptional work, Mr. Mayo. You've become a local hero." "The press is eager to speak with you," remarked one of the officers. "No, I prefer to stay out of the limelight. That's not my style," Mr. Mayo declined, quietly retreating to his abode via a circuitous route to evade pursuit. He considered his actions nothing out of the ordinary, believing anyone would have done the same in his position. "How could I stand by when those in need of protection were in harm's way?" he reflected. A few hours later, Kurt arrived at Mr. Mayo's house, gratitude pouring from his words. "I'm the father of the boy you saved today. He's a resilient kid. Once I held him, he settled right down. Such bravery and intelligence in those eyes. We're deeply thankful you were there when it mattered." "We can't express our gratitude enough," Kurt expressed, his voice laden with emotion after a tumultuous day. "Is there any way I can repay you?" Kurt inquired earnestly. Mr. Mayo waved off the notion with a humble smile. "No need for thanks. When a child's safety is at stake, there's no hesitation," he replied, genuinely touched by Kurt's appreciation. Yet Kurt persisted, wanting to show his gratitude. "If you insist, perhaps a new hunting suit and some provisions for my dog? Consider it done. But may I ask, was your intervention motivated by money?" Mr. Mayo's curiosity prompted him to pose the question. "Oh, sadly, it's much more complicated than that," Kurt replied, his voice tinged with regret. Mr. Mayo listened attentively, prompting Kurt to share further details of their tumultuous past. As Kurt recounted the series of events, from Jolie's illness to her unconventional parenting decision and subsequent passing, Mr. Mayo nodded in understanding. "I live somewhat isolated here, so to speak, and rarely hear such tales," he remarked. Kurt elaborated on Nick's motivations, highlighting the investigator's insight that Nick's actions were driven not solely by greed, but by a deep-seated desire for revenge. "He was consumed by it," Kurt explained. Relieved to share the complexities of the situation with an impartial listener, Kurt pondered aloud, questioning if their actions had driven Nick to the brink of madness and revenge. "If it were just about himself, I wouldn't suffer such reflexivity. But everything he and Jolie did ultimately revolved around their son," Kurt reflected. Turning to Mr. Mayo for his perspective, Kurt asked, "Do you think we played a role in pushing him to this point? Are we responsible for his desire for revenge?" "Are you serious? You're an adult, and you're talking such nonsense." Mr. Mayo's blunt truth hit Kurt hard, offering a fresh perspective on Nick's actions. "That Nick of yours always found a reason. He doesn't even need one. He married for money, cheated shamelessly, mistreated his sick wife, and convinced himself it was all her fault. What's her fault? For retaliating once? For losing patience? For not enduring it?" Mr. Mayo's words resonated deeply with Kurt, prompting him to reflect on the situation. Grateful for the insight, Kurt smiled in response. "Now, I also owe you for your good advice," he acknowledged. The gamekeeper waved his hand dismissively. They parted as friends, with Mr. Mayo promising to look after Robert. "I heard somewhere that the Chinese have this belief or wisdom, God knows what to call it, that if you save someone's life, you're responsible for that person forever. So don't worry about your Robert. I'll look after him here too," Mr. Mayo assured Kurt. True to his word, Mr. Mayo became a regular presence in Kurt's household, providing support and love to Robert. Meanwhile, Nick was sentenced to several years of imprisonment, bringing a sense of relief to Kurt's family. Life gradually returned to normal, with Mr. Chinlin continuing to fulfill his duties as Robert's guardian. Kurt found companionship in a single mother whose daughter attended the same kindergarten as Robert. Their children quickly became friends, sparking hope in Kurt's parents for his personal happiness. Despite moving forward, Kurt remained dedicated to honoring Jolie's memory. He regularly spoke to Robert about his mother, sharing photos and videos to ensure her presence was never forgotten. He reassured the boy that his mother's love would always surround him, even in her absence. My name is Jason Miller. I toil away as a laborer in a modest factory, lacking any noteworthy qualifications. Straight out of high school, I plunged into the workforce, compelled by financial constraints that rendered quitting an unattainable luxury. Despite the meager earnings, I trudged on, my wallet now holding only a lone $100 bill, scarcely sufficient for mid-month expenses. With around $500 resting in the bank, I reckoned I'd scrape by somehow. In the midst of my musings, a forlorn figure caught my attention. A disheveled girl clad in a high school uniform not familiar to our locale stood before me. Despite the chill in the air, she wore no coat, her knees marred by scrapes, and her attire in disarray. What's troubling her? My curiosity piqued. I halted my stride to observe her plight. Shouldn't she be heading home? Seated there at this hour, perhaps she's taken ill. Her attempts to warm her freezing fingers by rubbing them together did not escape my notice. Leaving her be risks her getting caught up in trouble. What's the best course here? Resolving to act, I ducked into a nearby cafe, procured some steaming beverages and donuts, and approached her. As I drew near, the girl tensed, a hint of fear flickering across her features. Good evening. No need to fear. I won't harm you. I noticed you seemed cold, and I thought it offers some warmth. Would you like this? I extended a freshly purchased cup of hot lemon tea. She tentatively accepted, pressing the warm cup to her cheek for comfort. Are you hungry? Hunger only worsens the cold. Here, would you care for a donut? Uncertain of her preferences, I selected one at random, wondering if she'd receive it. With a soft thank you, she accepted the offering. Aren't you heading home? She shook her head in response, but offered no explanation. Could she have fled her home? I pondered, wary of delving too deeply into her circumstances. Then, a gust of wind lifted her skirt, revealing a network of painful wounds on her legs. What happened? She hastily concealed her legs, but not before I caught sight of the injuries. Did someone hurt you? Were you attacked? Her demeanor stiffened, reluctant to divulge. All right, no need to talk if you don't wish to, but lingering here puts you at risk. How about heading home? In a barely audible voice, she murmured, No. I was planning to go to my dad's, but it's quite a distance away. Her father's place, so she's staying with her mother now. I couldn't fathom the complexity of her situation, sensing it wouldn't resolve easily. Have you tried calling your dad? Maybe he can come get you. I don't have the number. I don't even have a phone, she replied, surprising me with her lack of a cell phone in this day and age. Do you know the address? Can you show me where it is? I inquired, to which she nodded, producing a small piece of paper bearing an unfamiliar address. Is this where you're supposed to meet him? She confirmed with a nod. It seems quite a distance, it's getting late, I remarked, pulling out my smartphone to search the address. The result revealed Greenwood Group, a construction company. I could jot down the number for you to call tomorrow. This is the contact I found linked to that address. Give it a try, you might reach your dad. It seems he works for a construction company, I suggested optimistically. She brightened at the prospect. Okay, you should stay at a nearby hotel tonight. I'll arrange it for you. Can you manage on your own? She hesitated, admitting her lack of funds. Despite my own financial constraints, I still had a $100 bill tucked away. Perhaps it'll suffice for a night, I mused, reassuring her. Don't worry, I can cover it. A warm bath and a good night's rest will help. You can call your dad in the morning. But I can't repay you, she worriedly protested. Forget about it. Just focus on reuniting with your dad. I reassured her, leading the way to a nearby hotel where breakfast was included for $100. After arranging everything with the hotel staff, including permission for her to make a morning call, I bid her farewell. It felt gratifying to assist her despite my now empty wallet. A few days later, as I returned home, a factory manager summoned me. Smith, you wanted to see me. The summons from the manager marked a first for me in my tenure at the factory. With a nervous air, I stepped into his office. Clad in an expensive suit, a stark contrast to the modest setting of our workplace, he greeted me. "It's Jason, right?" "Yes, sir, Jason Miller," I confirmed, my apprehension mounting. "You won't need to come back here," he stated bluntly. "I beg your pardon? What's the reason?" I stammered, bewildered by this sudden dismissal. "It means you're being terminated," he declared, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. I struggled to comprehend. "Could you please explain? Have I committed an offense warranting termination? I can't recall any wrongdoing." "We can't tolerate troublemakers like you in our establishment," he asserted. "What exactly makes me a troublemaker? And are you connected with the mafia?" I blurted out, my mind racing with confusion. "What? Absolutely not. That's absurd," he denied vehemently. "I offered you a job straight out of high school, and now you're implicated with the mafia." "That's preposterous. I've never had any dealings with the mafia, nor have they approached me," I protested vehemently. "Your protests don't change the fact that the mafia is inquiring about you. As a company, we can't afford such associations," he countered. "I was never the company's first choice anyway. The previous owner used to say things like, 'As long as someone's motivated, even a high school graduate will do,'" he disclosed. "That's news to me. His decision has put me in quite a predicament. Please, I assure you, I have no ties to the mafia," I pleaded desperately. "I couldn't care less about your predicament. It's none of my concern," he retorted callously. "Why not seek help from the mafia then? They might assist you," he suggested coldly. "I swear I have no connections with them. There must be some misunderstanding. Please reconsider," I implored, grasping at any hope of retaining my job. "The decision stands. We can't afford social liabilities in our small factory, and don't fabricate such tales next time you seek employment," he admonished sternly. "I'm not fabricating anything. I've never associated with such individuals," I protested earnestly. "Then were you running with a rough crowd in high school? Is that the kind of company you keep?" he interrogated. "That's impossible. Please, Mr. Smith, believe me," I pleaded, desperation creeping into my voice. "Enough. Just leave. You'll be compensated for today," he dismissed me coldly. "Never darken our doors again." "No. There must be some misunderstanding," I persisted, but my words fell on deaf ears. He regarded me with disdain, pointing toward the exit. "Is that all you have to say? I've heard your side. Now go. I've work to attend to." With a heavy heart, I realized it was the end. In the office, I received a meager envelope, my final paycheck from the company. Were the 15 years of hard work really so inconsequential, reduced to this thin envelope? As I bid farewell to my colleagues, their expressions mirrored my disbelief. "Why the sudden departure? It's absurd," they lamented, expressing regret at my forced exit. Yet, despite their sentiments, none dared confront the manager or challenge his decision, fearing they'd meet a similar fate. With a farewell and a wish for their well-being, I departed from the gates of the company I had faithfully served for 15 years. What am I to do now? Fired so abruptly, all I possess is this meager envelope. I must find another job swiftly before it dwindles away, I mused, my gaze fixed upon the ground. Suddenly, a black tire halted before me, prompting me to look up. It was a sleek luxury car obstructing the way. Naturally, I thought, must be some high-ranking individual here for the factory. They ought to hasten their entrance. The driver, clad in gloves, emerged from the vehicle and courteously opened the rear door. Stepping out was a man in an exquisite suit accompanied by a girl. He inquired of her, "Is this the gentleman?" Her nod confirmed it. Recognizing her from our earlier encounter, I exclaimed, "Ah, you're the girl from before. So you've reunited with your father? That's wonderful. I'm truly glad for you." Forgetting my recent misfortunes, I addressed her warmly. She beamed and embraced me. "Thanks to you, my daughter is safely in my arms. I owe you my gratitude." "You're her father? Excellent news. I was concerned for her but had no means to contact you thereafter. By the way, you're leaving the premises quite early. Any pressing engagements?" I inquired, attempting a forced laugh. It wouldn't do to divulge my recent dismissal to someone I'd just met, especially someone likely of high rank, evident from the lavish car and attire. It felt improper to engage with such a figure. "If you're not pressed for time, I'd like to express my appreciation. It's nearly lunchtime. Would you care to join me?" he offered graciously. Oh no, that's too generous. I couldn't possibly accept gratitude for simply doing what was right, I demurred. Come now, don't be so modest. Should you have other commitments, I won't insist. But if you're available, please allow me to treat you. A mere thank you hardly suffices for saving my daughter, he insisted earnestly, a sense of sincerity in his words. Initially, I hesitated, feeling that as a recently dismissed individual, I had no pressing engagements. Besides, job hunting in my current downtrodden state seemed futile. However, considering my circumstances, I relented, saying, "If you insist, then I'll accept your generous offer," and agreed to accompany them. Stepping into the car, I was whisked away to a posh restaurant. "Excuse me, I'm not exactly dressed for this," I remarked, gesturing to my work attire, hardly suitable for such an upscale establishment. Expecting a modest diner at best, I was taken aback by the opulence. Yet the man chuckled heartily, dismissing my concerns with, "Don't worry about it. Clothes don't dine." With his encouragement, I followed him, noting the lack of fuss from the hostess, who greeted me with a smile, indicating he was a regular. The ambience of the private room exuded luxury, albeit making me feel somewhat out of place. Despite my discomfort, as the conversation flowed and drinks were poured, I found myself gradually relaxing. The genuine smiles exchanged between father and daughter, coupled with the sumptuous fare, began to thaw my apprehension. It felt surreal, being amidst such extravagance as a high school graduate. Yet, with each sip and bite, I couldn't help but savor the moment, sensing it might be my first and last taste of such indulgence. Eventually, the man disclosed his identity. "I should have introduced myself earlier, but that's unlike me," he admitted, offering me a business card bearing the name B of Greenwood family. "Oh my," I thought, my mind jumping to conclusions. "I apologize," he interjected swiftly. "No need for apologies." "You're right," I replied, realizing my faux pas. "But you see, even a mafia member is a parent. Thanks to you, I'm reunited with my daughter." "I'm truly grateful," he confessed earnestly. "Oh, it was my pleasure," I replied sincerely, touched by his gratitude. "May I ask something?" "I've been curious about why she was there that day," I inquired. "That's because, you see, her mother and I divorced years ago. Shortly after she remarried, her new husband appeared to be the vice president of a small factory. However, after her passing, his new wife took over the household. Coincidentally, around the same time, the factory's president, who had always been kind to my daughter, also passed away. The vice president then ascended to the presidency. Since then, my daughter has been treated as an inconvenience." "Could that be why her legs were injured?" I wondered aloud. "Yes, precisely. She was injured in places not easily visible, especially on her back. It was dreadful. I can't even begin to imagine the pain she endured. Before her mother's passing, she received an amulet, and was instructed that if she ever needed help, she should open it. That was the note left for her. Unfortunately, not jotting down a phone number was an oversight. She was desperately trying to locate me. However, despite her efforts, the distance was too great for a high school student to traverse alone. By the time you found her, her wallet was empty. If it hadn't been for your intervention, she might have succumbed to the cold." "That was the situation," he explained. I suspected there must have been extenuating circumstances. As for her mother's new husband, I can't forgive him for subjecting her to such hardship. "I swore to seek retribution," he declared. "Oh, it doesn't sound quite fitting for someone associated with the mafia to express such sentiments, does it?" I remarked. "I understand your sentiment. Thank you," he responded. "What about you? Leaving work at such an hour, something must have happened, right?" he inquired. "It may sound peculiar to share this with someone I've just met, particularly someone of your stature, but I was actually terminated from my job just now," I confessed. "Fired? Why?" he inquired, visibly taken aback. "Apparently, I was unjustly accused of having ties to unsavory elements. I have no clue how that came about. This morning, out of nowhere, I was accused and promptly dismissed," I explained. "Hold on a moment," he said, beckoning over an executive nearby. After a brief exchange in hushed tones, he turned back to me, visibly perturbed. "Idiots," he exclaimed before addressing me directly. "I must apologize profusely. It appears that my colleague is at fault here," he said apologetically. "Oh, what do you mean?" I asked, bewildered by this sudden turn of events. "I wanted to express my gratitude," so I had my associates look into your situation. They found out where you were employed but wanted to confirm it firsthand. It seems they mentioned our organization's name during the inquiry, which likely led to the misunderstanding about me being associated with antisocial forces. It was a complete setup, and for that, I sincerely apologize. Allow me to rectify this. I'll speak with your manager tomorrow, clarify the misunderstanding, and ensure everything is resolved, he reassured. No, I'm fine, I replied hesitantly. You shouldn't be fine. You must be facing difficulties, right? He persisted. Well, it wouldn't be truthful to say I'm not troubled. However, returning to work under such management would only repeat the same cycle. I refuse to work under someone who lacks trust in their employees, I asserted. I understand. Do you have another job lined up? He inquired. Unfortunately, no. Truth be told, I have nothing at the moment. If I don't secure something by month's end, I'll be in dire straits. But I'm resolved to stand firm, I confessed. Good for you. In that case, how about I introduce you to a company owned by a friend of mine? They have no connections to the mafia. I believe my friend would appreciate your skills, he proposed. No, thank you. I appreciate the offer, and I'm tempted to accept. However, should I truly consider it? Even if they claim no affiliation with the mafia, can I trust that completely? I pondered aloud. I see. Well, should you ever find yourself in need, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here to assist, he offered with a chuckle. About a month later, finding myself in dire straits, I reached out for his help. Despite numerous job interviews, I remained unemployed. Faced with the prospect of settling for part-time work, he invited me for a drink, ensuring it was on him. It was a humble gesture considering his position, and I accepted, surprised to find such generosity from a mafia member. If it's a bar, you're not asking for much, huh? He quipped. That's not fair. I'm treating you, and you prefer a bar over a fancy restaurant, I retorted. Well, I've never been one for fancy restaurants. They make me feel uneasy. I'm more at ease in a casual bar, I confessed. I see. I suppose I didn't consider that, he conceded. With a beer mug in hand, I replied. I'll take this, thanks, and took a swig. So, have you had any luck finding the job? He inquired. Not yet, unfortunately. Being a high school graduate, it's proving to be quite challenging. I've applied to numerous companies, but no success, I admitted. That's a shame. Say, would you mind assisting me with something? He asked, causing my heart to skip a beat. Being asked for help by someone associated with the mafia didn't bode well in my mind. However, he continued, I understand if you're hesitant, but rest assured, my request is not what you might expect. Even though I'm affiliated with the mafia, not all our endeavors are nefarious. I merely seek justice for my daughter, he divulged. Justice, yes. Over the past month, I've been investigating the individual responsible for my daughter's suffering. It transpired to be the manager of the company you were employed at. He operates as the factory's manager. Unlike his predecessor who wore work attire and engaged with the workforce, this man dons expensive suits and avoids the factory floor entirely. He resides in a luxurious neighborhood over an hour's drive away, which explains his habitual tardiness. Absolutely, a classic example of executive negligence. My daughter practically served as his maid, and it appears she wasn't even adequately nourished. Reduced to tears while eating a single bagel. Unbelievable, isn't it? Yes, unfortunately, it's true. How could he treat my daughter in such a despicable manner? He muttered, frustration evident as he finished his beer. Hence, my desire for retribution for my daughter. But when we talk about revenge, it's not about resorting to anything unlawful. I refuse to risk losing precious time with my daughter by ending up behind bars over a scoundrel like him. So we're approaching this legally. Legally? Yes, hence why I've established a company. What sort of company? It operates within the same industry, but truthfully, it's rather inconsequential. What I'm truly after is seizing control of that company. Seizing control? Yes, precisely. We'll orchestrate a takeover and oust the manager. I possess substantial incriminating evidence against him. He's drowning in personal debt, largely accrued from gambling and the like, and now he's funneling the company's profits to settle his debts. Is that so? Yes, that's precisely why the employees' wages have plummeted. They've seen a significant decline since the passing of the previous manager. That's correct. Our wages took a nosedive following the demise of the previous manager. It's clear now. We were all pawns in his scheme, toiling for his benefit. Hence, my resolve to oust him from the company and transform it into a place where employees are rightfully compensated. What fate awaits the manager once he's ousted? Well, I reckon he'll be in quite a bind. Additionally, it appears his wife married him solely for his wealth. If she discovers he's no longer in power, she'll likely abandon him. Moreover, socially, I'll ensure he's ostracized, making it challenging for him to secure employment elsewhere. You could do that? Well, I am the boss of Greenwood after all. Manipulating such situations comes naturally to me. I understand. I sought your assistance because you too fell victim to his actions. I presumed you might seek retribution as well. Indeed, once the employees learn the truth, they'll likely share our sentiments. Most likely. If things proceed as intended, I aim to expand the factory further, and I envision you as a manager. Me, a manager? That seems far-fetched. Nonsense. In the past, high school graduates ascending to managerial roles wasn't uncommon. If formal education is lacking, one compensates with experience and diligence. Don't you feel capable? If you're confident in me, I'll give it my best shot. Excellent. Then tonight, we'll toast to the future of our new venture. Thus, unexpectedly, I became entwined in the takeover scheme of the factory that had previously let me go. A month later, after thorough investigation, we devised a plan to inflict significant financial harm on the factory through our takeover. Well, Mr. Smith. Long time no see. Oh, we have a prior acquaintance? It's possible you wouldn't recall a former high school graduate employee. Ah, Jason Miller. You were terminated under the mistaken assumption of having ties to the mafia. Well, that's not entirely accurate. No worries. It led me to secure a favorable position at my current company. I harbor no ill will. Instead, I come bearing a lucrative proposal. A proposition? You mean you wish to engage in business with us? Precisely. Your products boast exceptional quality, a fact I can attest to from my years of service here. Hence, I propose a contract valued at $5 million. $5 million? Indeed. I request the delivery of goods totaling that amount within a fortnight. Upon confirmation of delivery, the $5 million will be transferred. That's quite generous. So shall we proceed with this contract? Of course, I said as I placed the contract on the table, urging him to sign without perusing its contents. He was elated by the mention of $5 million and hastily affixed his signature. Foreseeing the manager's lack of attention to detail, I had expected as much. Yet it still amused me to witness the behavior of a company manager. With the contract signed, he spurred the employees into action, driving them relentlessly and demanding they work without respite. Production surged forward, but when it came time for delivery, complications arose. No delivery company would take on the task, likely due to interference from the Greenwood. In desperation, Smith himself sought out carriers, only for a truck from the Greenwood to conveniently appear. Despite loading the goods and dispatching numerous trucks, delays ensued, with vehicles encountering various issues along the journey. Ultimately, the deadline passed without the goods arriving. I promptly contacted Smith and returned to the factory. The goods didn't arrive by the deadline. Our company has incurred significant losses, I informed him. This is a breach of contract, he protested. No, we fulfilled our end of the agreement. It clearly stipulates in the contract that failure to deliver results in a $5 million payment, I countered. That's preposterous. I wasn't aware of such a clause, he retorted. Mr. Smith, whether you were aware or not, it's clearly outlined here. Claiming ignorance won't absolve you of your responsibilities, I asserted. Impossible. My company doesn't possess $5 million. Then it appears we'll have to acquire this factory. This factory, it's clearly stated here. Even if the mishap occurred due to the carrier's fault, your company assumes full liability. You've signed the agreement, haven't you? Hold on, this is outrageous. Without the factory, it will spell disaster. Indeed, it appears so. No longer will anyone be able to settle the personal debts you've accumulated. How did you become aware of that? That's not all. It's likely your wife will depart as well. It seems she wedded you solely for your wealth. You were aware of all this and orchestrated this contract, he accused. It's not just me who harbors resentment towards you. That's why this course of action was taken. Now, the factory belongs to our company. Pack your belongings and depart, I instructed sternly. Unbelievable. With all my debts, he lamented, sinking into despair. Following his expulsion from the factory, he sought solace with his wife, imploring her assistance in clearing his debts. However, accustomed to a life of luxury, she chose to sever ties with the now destitute manager. Slamming divorce papers onto the table, she callously demanded compensation, further plunging him into insurmountable debt, leaving him in a state of profound suffering. Upon reporting the entire ordeal to the boss, he expressed satisfaction and commended my actions. Henceforth, he'll find no employment with any reputable company. He'll come to truly understand the consequences of betrayal. Yes, may he face torment in the depths of hell, I concurred. Presently you're the manager of this factory. Will you endeavor to expand the company for the benefit of the employees and yourself? My colleague inquired. No, that's not my primary motivation. I didn't undertake this for personal gain. I did it for the sake of my daughter, you, and all the hardworking employees at this factory. It's imperative that we prioritize the happiness of our employees, I clarified. Understood, sir. We'll ensure the employees' well-being, they affirmed. With that resolved, I resumed my role as the factory's manager, greeted warmly by my former colleagues. Thank you all for remaining steadfast. Together, let's strive to enhance the factory and ensure every employee receives fair compensation. This factory belongs to all of us, I proclaimed during my inaugural address. My colleagues erupted into cheers, welcoming me back wholeheartedly. For years, Julia had devoted herself to caring for her disabled husband, all while carrying their unborn child. But suspicions gnawed at her, leading her to place a discreet camera in their home. What she uncovered shattered her world. Meanwhile, in the office, oblivious to the passing time, Julia was engrossed in her work. Sketches littered her desk as she diligently crafted designs, her mind consumed by the project. It was only when her boss, Mark, appeared with concern etched on his face that she snapped back to reality. Julia, dear, it's time to take a break, Mark gently admonished. You've been here far too long. Simon needs to be picked up from school. With a jolt, Julia realized the lateness of the hour. Nearly 7 already? I must hurry, she exclaimed, hastily gathering her belongings. And we must discuss the new children's book cover design later. Traditional meets contemporary, remember? As Julia rushed to the bus stop, Mark marveled at her dedication and multitasking prowess. He admired her not just as a colleague but as a person, captivated by her resilience amidst life's challenges. Yet, as he gazed into her somber eyes, Julia's focus remained steadfastly on her family, leaving Mark to ponder in solitude. Rushing into the Karate Academy, Julia found Simon anxiously waiting in the changing room. He sighed with relief upon seeing her, expressing his worry. Mom, I thought you forgot about me. Everyone else's parents have already picked them up. Embracing him tightly, Julia apologized. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Work held me up. Let's head home now. How was school? Did you get a lot of homework? As they made their way home, Simon shared proudly that he had finished his homework while waiting. Julia praised his responsibility. You're truly remarkable, my dear. Always so dependable and excelling in school. I'm incredibly lucky to have you. Yet, both of them felt the absence of Julia's late husband, Simon's father, whose passing left a void in their lives. Upon their return, they found Octavio, Julia's current husband, reclined on the couch, visibly irritated, flipping through TV channels. He grumbled, "Took you long enough. I've been starving since lunch. Nobody cares about me, I'm just a burden." Worried, Julia inquired about Octavio's well-being. "Why are you speaking like this? Is your leg bothering you? I'll whip up dinner quickly and prepare a compress for you, I promise." Octavio's demeanor softened as he waited for his meal, while Simon, frustrated by Octavio's lack of consideration for his mother, headed to the kitchen to assist Julia, peeling potatoes and slicing tomatoes. Julia praised her son, grateful for his help. Since Octavio's illness, Julia's life had become an ongoing struggle. Balancing the care of her son, the demands of her job, and the needs of her sick husband left her with no time for herself, perpetually drained and exhausted. In the workplace, Julia commanded deep respect and admiration from her colleagues. Her dedication was unwavering, infused with compassion and boundless enthusiasm. But the roots of her story stretch back much further. Julia, the youngest in her family, faced profound loss early in life. Her parents, aged and frail, departed, leaving her feeling adrift in her spacious apartment bedroom. Yearning for moments shared with her mother, longing for words of encouragement and paternal affection, Julia found herself navigating a world now devoid of their presence. Amidst this tumultuous period, Julia encountered Tony, her first husband. A soldier by profession, Tony's deployments often kept him far from home, punctuated only by brief reprieves. Their love blossomed swiftly, culminating in marriage. Julia stood faithfully by his side, enduring the agonizing stretches of his absence. With the birth of their son Simon, Tony vowed to retire from his perilous occupation. Tragically, that pledge remained unfulfilled. Tony never returned, leaving Julia a widow at the tender age of 25. Though the mornings were fraught with sorrow, Julia found solace in the unwavering love of her son and the refuge of her work. Years later, Julia's path intersected with Octavio, a man of striking contrast to Tony. Secure and charismatic, he courted her with poetic gestures and bouquets of flowers. Unwittingly, Julia found herself falling deeply in love. Octavio proved adept with Simon, and their bond led to marriage, buoyed by Octavio's steadfast insistence. As a builder, Octavio's work often necessitated travel, providing financial stability to their home. However, murmurs of skepticism swirled among Julia's colleagues at the workshop. Rose, a trusted confidant, voiced concerns, questioning the nature of Octavio's frequent absences and the secrecy surrounding his past. Julia, bristling at the insinuations, defended her husband's honor, urging her colleagues to desist from unfounded speculation. "Please stop," she implored. "Octavio has his reasons for guarding his past. It's not for us to pry. He provides for us, and that's all that matters. And rest assured, our family is expanding with the arrival of our new baby. Simon is overjoyed at the prospect of a sibling." However, tragedy befell Octavio during his work at a construction site in a nearby city. A fall from the third-floor scaffolding left him with severe injuries to his leg and ankle. Despite returning home with a cast, his mobility remained compromised long after the accident. For a man accustomed to activity, this incident dealt a crushing blow, leaving him feeling incapacitated and detached from the world around him. Julia, empathetic and supportive, shouldered the burden of household duties, caring for Simon, and assuming sole financial responsibility as Octavio's ability to work waned. With Octavio confined to their home, unable to contribute economically, Julia found herself stretched thin, especially with the impending arrival of their new baby. Yet, resolute in her determination to remain strong for her children, she soldiered on. What troubled her most, however, was Octavio's demeanor. He appeared disengaged, showing little interest in Simon's academic progress or household matters. Julia couldn't help but feel frustrated that despite his injury, Octavio seemed unwilling to offer even a modicum of support. "Octavio, why do you remain so despondent?" Julia implored, attempting to buoy his spirits. "Perhaps a short walk on the balcony for some fresh air might lift your mood. I'll assist you. It could aid in your recovery. Don't succumb to despair like this. Can't you see how much I'm struggling? I'm in constant pain, and the painkillers hardly alleviate it. I feel utterly helpless." Octavio's response came laced with accusation. "You're selfish, Julia. You only consider your own needs. Pregnancy isn't an ailment. Why do you complain? I spend my days alone, waiting for your return, only to be met with blame when you're here." Julia's heart sank at the bitterness in his words, grappling with the weight of her responsibilities and the strain on their relationship. A few days later, Octavio stumbled upon an online healer named Camila, boasting quick and effective cures for muscular and bone ailments. Despite Julia's attempts to dissuade him, Octavio remained convinced of the treatment's efficacy. Regular visits from Camila ensued, with Octavio claiming a reduction in his pain. On an ordinary day, Julia returned home earlier than usual due to Simon's illness, finding unfamiliar female footwear in the hallway. Realization dawned swiftly: Camila was in their house. The closed kitchen door piqued Julia's curiosity, prompting her to eavesdrop on Octavio and the supposed healer's conversation. What she heard left her reeling. Octavio's discontent spilled forth as he lamented, "Camila, I can't go on like this. Pretending to be infirm is exhausting. My back aches from lying around all day, and I've even put on weight. When will we rid ourselves of Julia and her son? She's already growing tired of me, but I can't wait to claim this magnificent house as my own." Attempting to assuage Octavio's impatience, Camilla cautioned, "Rushing this will only invite suspicion, especially now that Julia's pregnant. We must proceed carefully. You'll need to care for the unborn child to avoid arousing suspicion as a widower. Patience is key. We've narrowly escaped detection before. Obtaining reliable poison is imperative. Administer it gradually in their tea, ensuring their demise appears as severe poisoning. No traces must remain. In a month, they'll be gone, and you'll be free. A shiver raced down Julia's spine as she absorbed the sinister plot unfolding before her. Her colleagues' suspicions about Octavio had proven tragically accurate. Her immediate impulse to confront them battled with the need for concrete evidence. She couldn't risk their escape. He never loved me. Our marriage was a facade, Julia realized bitterly. His reaction to my pregnancy wasn't joy, it was dread. I've endangered Simon by leaving him in Octavio's care. Desperation and determination warred within her as she silently retreated, bracing herself for the confrontation ahead. Gathering her resolve, Julia burst into the room with calculated force, masking her turmoil with practiced composure. "Hello, I'm back," she announced, steeling herself for the tumultuous ordeal ahead. As Julia stepped into the house, the kitchen door creaked open, revealing the healer. "Good afternoon, Julia. Our session just concluded. Your husband is showing signs of improvement. I'm doing everything in my power to aid his recovery," the healer announced. Julia, though shaken, maintained her facade of composure. "Thank you. I'll settle the payment in 2 days when I receive my salary. We'll settle the fees for both sessions," she replied calmly. With a nod, the healer departed, leaving Julia to confront her husband. Engaging in strained conversation with Octavio, Julia tended to his needs before checking on Simon, citing exhaustion and a throbbing headache. She was appalled by Octavio's deceit and the depths of his betrayal. The following day at work, Julia found herself consumed by distress, retreating to the privacy of the bathroom to weep. Lost in her turmoil, she was approached by Mark, whose concern was palpable. "Julia, forgive me if I'm prying, but something's clearly troubling you." "It pains me to see you like this," he remarked gently. Surprised by Mark's empathy, Julia divulged her harrowing ordeal. With a history of trust between them, she poured out her fears and uncertainties. "I feel trapped, Mark. It's like living with a traitor and a potential murderer. What should I do? How can I seek justice and safeguard Simon and myself?" she implored. Mark's response was resolute. "Julia, we must involve the authorities. I'll reach out to a reliable investigator I know. Share everything with him. He'll provide the assistance you need. Additionally, I have a plan. Discreetly tamper with Octavio's wheelchair, removing the screws, and leave a concealed recording device. If he's feigning his condition, he'll reveal it when the chair collapses. That'll be the evidence we require. I'll coordinate with the police for swift action. Remember, you're not alone in this." Empowered by Mark's support, Julia felt a surge of relief. With guidance from the investigator, her fear abated somewhat. She resolved to meticulously gather evidence against Octavio and the fraudulent healer, heeding the investigator's advice to exercise caution, preparing her own food and drink. Yet, with each encounter with Octavio, her resentment and fury simmered beneath the surface, fueling her determination to expose the truth. That night, Julia meticulously tampered with Octavio's wheelchair, carefully removing the screws and setting up her cell phone to record. As Octavio leaned on the chair, the wheels gave way, causing him to tumble. Swiftly rising to his feet, he attempted to maintain his ruse. Simon, drawn by the commotion, dashed into the room, jubilantly exclaiming, "Uncle Octavio, you're not sick anymore. You're cured. How amazing." Julia's applause was laced with sarcasm as she addressed Octavio. "Indeed, Simon, it appears the healer's sessions are yielding miraculous results. Just look at Octavio's sudden agility. How could you deceive us like this? Why pretend to be ill?" Octavio, caught off guard, feigned discomfort, attempting to salvage his facade. But Julia's patience had worn thin. "Enough of this farce, Octavio. Your deceit is laid bare. There was never any injury, it was all a fabrication." Before Octavio could concoct a response, the doorbell rang. Simon rushed to answer it, ushering in Mark accompanied by a police officer. Informed of the plan, Mark wasted no time in springing into action. Together, they swiftly immobilized Octavio, thwarting any chance of escape. The police officer wasted no time in issuing the stern declaration: "Octavio Martinez, you and your accomplice Lucia, also known as Camila, are under arrest for attempted murder against Julia and Simon. Further investigation has revealed similar schemes in multiple cities, exploiting vulnerable individuals for personal gain. Your malicious intent will not go unpunished. Octavio's protests fell on deaf ears as the investigator intervened, silencing him. Your theatrics won't save you, Octavio. Julia has provided damning evidence of your fraudulent recovery, and your accomplice has already confessed. Your time for deception is over. Julia, still reeling from the shock, watched as Octavio was escorted away, her heart heavy with the weight of betrayal. As the chaos subsided, Simon approached Mark, displaying a maturity beyond his years, a silent testament to the resilience of youth. Thank you for helping Mom. Uncle Octavio is bad. I don't like him. He doesn't love Mom or me. He's not coming back, Simon stated solemnly. Mark replied with equal gravity, No, Simon, he's not coming back. And I'll be around if you'll have me because your mother needs support now. Simon's innocent smile brightened the room. Sure, come visit us more often. You're like a movie hero unmasking Uncle Octavio, he quipped. Recognizing the need for privacy, Mark suggested, How about you watch a cartoon? I need to talk to your mother. It's adult stuff, probably boring for you. Understanding, Simon headed to his room as Mark turned his attention to Julia. He enveloped her in a comforting embrace, his voice gentle. Don't torment yourself anymore, Julia, it's all over. Octavio and his accomplice will be in prison for a long time. Julia, almost in a daze, murmured, Why do I have such bad luck? My first husband died. The second was a criminal, and now I'm pregnant with his child. Why can't I find a decent man? Is it me? Mark's response was steady and reassuring. Don't you see who's been by your side all these years? You're searching for happiness in distant places without realizing what you already have. I've always loved you unconditionally, Julia. I would never betray you. Look around. I don't want to pressure you, but know that I'm here. Touched by his sincerity, Julia finally allowed herself to trust. She embraced him gratefully. Thank you for being here, Mark, for everything. I don't know if I can reciprocate your feelings, but I'm willing to get to know you better, and who knows what the future holds. Mark's response was filled with understanding. Don't worry, I have great admiration for you, and above all, I want to be your friend, someone you can trust. If it doesn't work out romantically, that's okay. But at least let me be there for you. I don't want you to leave my side, Mark. I just need time to process all this. But I definitely want us to get to know each other better, Julia confessed. From that moment on, Julia's life began to take a turn for the better. Despite the challenges of pregnancy and lingering doubts, Mark remained a constant source of support. Their bond deepened, and eventually Julia realized that Mark was the loving and reliable partner she had been searching for. She divorced Octavio and married Mark, finding happiness in the warmth of his love. She had always harbored dreams of a loving family, even though she initially dismissed Mark as merely a man of charming words. However, time proved him to be a steadfast and affectionate partner, both to her and to Simon. Their workshop thrived, and Mark's business ventures occasionally took him away on trips to negotiate clothing sales in other cities. Julia still had a month left until her expected due date, but fate took an unexpected turn one night when her water broke prematurely, triggering early contractions. In a panic, she called for an ambulance, slipping into unconsciousness, barely managing to request her neighbor's assistance in caring for Simon. Rushed to the hospital, Julia's labor unfolded into a nightmarish ordeal, a relentless struggle between consciousness and oblivion. Among the massed medical personnel attending to her, Julia failed to recognize one nurse, Lucia, Octavio's accomplice, who had seized an opportunity for revenge against Julia for thwarting her plans with Octavio. Upon regaining consciousness, Julia's heart sank as she realized the absence of her newborn. Frantically, she demanded answers, her voice a desperate cry echoing through the sterile hospital room. Where is my son? I need to see my baby. What happened? Approaching her with a heavy heart, a doctor gently broke the devastating news. I'm deeply sorry, Julia, but your son didn't survive. The umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck, and despite our best efforts, we couldn't save him. You're young, there will be other opportunities for you to have children. Overwhelmed by grief, Julia buried her face in her hands, her sobs echoing off the stark hospital walls. The doctors intervened, administering sedatives to ease her anguish, yet the pain of losing her child pierced her soul, leaving her shattered and bereft. Upon learning of the tragic loss, Mark hurried to the hospital to offer solace to Julia. She was consumed by inconsolable grief, murmuring through tears, I would rather have perished than my son. I can't bear to live. Why did this happen to me? Mark enveloped her in a tender embrace, his touch a feeble attempt to soothe her anguish. Don't speak like that, Julia. You must stay strong, especially for Simon. He still needs you. Time will ease the pain. I'll be here every step of the way, he assured her gently. As they lay their baby to rest, Julia wept bitterly at the small graveside, grappling with the unbearable reality of their loss. Only Simon's unexpected fortitude and maturity offered her a glimmer of solace, allowing her to navigate the depths of her sorrow. Together, mother and son embarked on the arduous journey of healing. While the memory of their lost child continued to weigh heavily on Julia's heart, 7 years later, their atelier had blossomed into one of the city's most prestigious and sought-after establishments, drawing clientele from far and wide. Working in seamless harmony, Julia and Mark shared an unspoken understanding, their partnership flourishing amidst the creative whirl of their shared passion. Mark and Simon, now poised 13-year-old, had forged a bond akin to that of father and son. Simon excelled both on the soccer field and in his studies, a testament to his dedication and zest for life. One day, Julia found herself needing to take the subway for an urgent business meeting as their car was undergoing repairs. Along the way, her path intersected with that of a 7-year-old boy, his small frame supported by crutches, his appearance downtrodden and unkempt. Her heart constricted at the sight of him. Moved by compassion, she purchased pastries and hot tea, approaching the boy with a gentle offer. He devoured the food ravenously, nearly choking in his haste. Julia then delicately inquired, "Hello there, little one. What's your name? Why are you here on the streets? What happened to you?" The boy, once he finished eating, responded with a blend of timidity and resilience, "I'm John. I tried to ride a bicycle too big for me, and I ended up falling and injuring my leg. Since then, I had to rely on these crutches to get around." Concern etched across her features, Julia probed further, "That sounds serious, John. Haven't your parents taken you to see a doctor? You're so young. Surely there's treatment available." John let out a heavy sigh, his voice tinged with resignation. "My mother is always drunk, and I don't even know who my father is. She neglects me, never bothering to seek medical help. She insists it's better for me to beg for money." A wave of sadness and empathy washed over Julia as she wrapped the boy in a comforting embrace, pledging, "Fear not, John. My husband, Mark, and I will find a way to assist you. We'll explore avenues for your treatment." The boy regarded her with a mix of hope and skepticism. "I doubt it will make a difference. My mother prefers me to beg. She doesn't want me to get better," he lamented. Driven by an overwhelming urge to intervene, Julia vowed to John that she would spare no effort in improving his circumstances. Galvanized by her determination and the boy's longing for a brighter future, she offered reassurance. "Let's explore our options, John. Hold on to hope. We'll advocate for you. No child should endure suffering due to their parents' neglect." She swiftly dialed Mark, her voice choked with emotion, and relayed the distressing situation. Mark wasted no time, arriving promptly to lend his ear to John's tale and extend his assistance. Together they resolved to visit the boy's home to confront his mother and gain deeper insight into their predicament. With a touch of apprehension, John guided them to his apartment. As they prepared to depart, Julia took note of John's tattered and soiled attire, declaring, "We'll pick up some fresh clothes for you on our way." Excitedly, John inquired if he should bring anything along. Julia assured him, "No need. We'll take care of everything." Upon reaching the apartment, they were met with a pungent odor of alcohol and tobacco lingering in the air. The apartment lay in disarray, and John's mother lay slumped in a chair, snoring loudly. With a heavy heart, John explained his mother's situation. "She hasn't stirred since last night. She was drinking with some men in the kitchen. It'll be a while before she wakes. When she does, she'll demand money from me, then use it to buy more alcohol and cigarettes. If I don't bring enough, she'll hurl insults at me. Why is she like this? Why does she drink? Why doesn't she love me like other mothers?" Julia and Mark exchanged grim glances, deeply troubled by John's account. However, their resolve remained unyielding as they declared, "We're taking you home, John. Tomorrow, we'll accompany you to see a doctor about your leg, all right?" Leaving a note for John's mother detailing their decision, they ushered him away from the desolate scene. John embraced Julia with heartfelt gratitude, likening her to a fairy from his storybooks. Though touched, Julia's smile was tinged with sorrow as she ran her fingers through the boy's unruly curls. En route, they purchased new attire and backpacks stocked with essentials for John, who expressed profound appreciation and eagerness for a fresh start with them. Arriving home, Julia's thoughts were consumed by caring for the child. After bathing John and examining his leg, they realized the severity of the situation. His limb was visibly misshapen, indicating a grave underlying condition. After a nourishing meal and clad in fresh attire, John drifted into a peaceful slumber, a serene smile gracing his lips. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Julia, Mark, and Simon convened to address their newfound responsibility. Julia was resolute in her determination to care for John, yet Mark voiced apprehensions regarding the potential complexities of formal adoption, cautioning of the legal hurdles they might face. Excited at the prospect of welcoming John into their fold, Simon pledged to be a supportive older brother. Mark interjected, "While I'm in favor of John staying with us, we must acknowledge the legal implications. Adoption is a lengthy and intricate process. Are you prepared for this?" Undeterred, Julia responded with unwavering resolve. "Ever since I laid eyes on John in the subway, something stirred within me. He's no longer a stranger, he's become family. I'm committed to giving him a happy and normal childhood. He deserves nothing less. Without our help, what fate awaits him? A life marred by delinquency and despair, perhaps even incarceration. Together, we can nurture him into a good person, help him find purpose, and who knows, maybe even walk again. I'm prepared to fight for him, no matter the obstacles. Thank you for standing by me." The following day, Julia escorted John to a pediatric orthopedist. After a thorough examination, including X-rays and CT scans, the doctor delivered their assessment. The condition of his leg is grave. We'll need to proceed with intricate surgery on the knee and ankle, followed by an extensive rehabilitation period. He'll require specialized footwear. With luck, within approximately 6 months, his leg should regain functionality. Are you in agreement with the proposed procedure? With unwavering resolve, John eagerly exclaimed, "I'm ready to undergo it. All if it means I can walk, run, and ride a bike again, Aunt Julia. I wholeheartedly accept the surgery. I promise to muster strength and refrain from complaining, no matter the hardships. When I fell off the bike it hurt, but I endured. I want my legs to be healthy again," John expressed, his voice filled with determination. Julia embraced the child, offering reassurance. "We'll take care of everything, John. My husband and I will cover the surgery costs. But now, we need to convince your mother to authorize it." Confronting John's mother, Jennifer, proved challenging. They found her inebriated and had to rouse her with cold water. Explaining their intentions amidst her intoxicated state was no easy feat. They discussed the medical consultation and diagnosis, but Jennifer, irate and intoxicated, protested vehemently. "Who are you to decide for my son? I'm his mother, and I won't allow you to lay a finger on him. He's my bread and butter. Give him back to me this instant." Attempting to reason with her, Julia pleaded softly, "Can't you see? You're consigning John to a life of hardship. Doesn't your son, who struggles to walk, deserve compassion? Have you considered his future? Please let the surgeon intervene. He deserves a chance at a healthy life. Can't you feel anything as a mother? We'll handle all the expenses. We just need your consent." Unmoved, Jennifer retorted, "Don't meddle in my affairs. You didn't give birth to him. I said no. If you don't return my son, I'll call the police and accuse you of kidnapping." Fed up, Mark slammed his hand on the table, his frustration evident. "Go ahead, call the police. We'll show them the conditions you're subjecting your son to. John will be placed in a shelter and you'll forfeit your parental rights. Sign the consent now. Consider this a wake-up call. Your priority seems to be alcohol." With a pointed gesture, he presented bottles of alcohol alongside some food, silently challenging the negligent mother to reconsider her stance. Jennifer quickly assessed the situation, signing the papers without hesitation, but not without lamenting. "Why are you doing this to me? I love my son. We're just going through hard times. I can't find a job. So I drink sometimes to numb the problems." Mark, silently reflecting, thought to himself, "Children shouldn't have to endure the consequences of their parents' vices. It's unfair." Outside, Julia and Mark breathed a sigh of relief, grateful to have extricated themselves from that tense situation. Almost simultaneously, they voiced their concern. "We can't allow John to return to such a toxic environment. It's no place for a child. How he managed to survive there for so long is beyond me." With determination, Julia organized everything for John's surgery, ensuring all necessary tests were conducted. When the doctor requested blood donations from the family, an unexpected discovery surfaced. Julia and John shared the same rare blood type. Perplexed, the doctor inquired, "Are you two related?" Julia, denying any familial connection, explained John's situation. The doctor proposed a DNA test to confirm any potential relationship while proceeding with surgery preparations, expressing confidence in their likely connection. Sharing the doctor's observations with Mark, Julia contemplated, the doctor might be onto something. "Have you noticed their striking resemblance? Perhaps we should compare childhood photos." Intrigued, Mark agreed, "It's worth exploring. Let's proceed with the DNA test." Meanwhile, John braced himself for the impending surgery. As John underwent the procedure, Julia, having known him for just 2 weeks, experienced overwhelming concern. She anxiously awaited news, her heart heavy with worry. Finally, the doctor emerged with reassuring updates. The surgery was successful, but the road to recovery would be arduous. In that brief period, Julia and John had forged a bond so deep that they felt like a genuine family. John had become attached to Julia, facing each stage of his treatment with courage and even attempting to lift her spirits with his playful rhymes and wordplay. His recovery journey was not just physical but also emotional, filled with hurdles and moments of revelation. Julia accompanied him through it all, her heart a mixture of anxiety and hope. Witnessing John's resilience during physiotherapy sessions filled her with admiration. He approaches each exercise and procedure with such determination. Even when the pain and exhaustion seem overwhelming, Julia often remarked, offering him a reassuring smile as she held his hand during their sessions. During this time, Julia couldn't shake off the thought of their shared rare blood type. As they lay in bed at night, she contemplated the possibility of some distant familial connection. "Perhaps he's a distant cousin," she mused, attempting to unravel a family mystery she hadn't known existed. Sensing his wife's introspection, Mark inquired, "What's on your mind, Julia?" She sighed softly, responding, "Just pondering the unexpected twists life throws our way, Mark. I never imagined John could be a distant relative." As the day of the DNA test results drew near, Julia's anxiety heightened. Regardless of the outcome, she knew that she and John were already deeply connected. Yet, the prospect of a blood tie stirred a mix of anticipation and apprehension within her. "Regardless of the test, John is a part of our family," she assured Mark and Simon, who nodded in understanding. They were prepared to embrace John as kin, irrespective of the outcome. One day, Mark rushed into the room, visibly agitated, clutching a set of papers. "Julia, you won't believe this. Sit down," he urged, handing her the test results. "John is your biological son, with a 99% probability." Stunned, Julia struggled to comprehend. "But the baby who died at the maternity wasn't my son. My child has been alive all this time, and who was I married to then? How could this have happened?" Overhearing the conversation, John was bewildered by the revelations. "So, you're my real mother?" he asked incredulously. "This is unbelievable. And Jennifer, the woman I thought was my mother, isn't actually my mom." Julia held John tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It seems you are indeed my real son, my dear. I'm overjoyed to have found you alive. They told me you had passed away. Please forgive me, I didn't know. We'll uncover the truth about what happened. I promise I'll never leave you again, my little ray of sunshine." In the subsequent legal proceedings, Julia was officially recognized as John's biological mother, and Jennifer, the neglectful mother, lost her parental rights. When Jennifer realized she would lose her benefits, she suddenly remembered John, begging for him to return, feigning love and longing. However, John remembered the mistreatment and neglect vividly. He was grateful for the love of his new parents, Juliet and Mark, and was determined to bring happiness to their lives. After an extensive investigation, detectives unraveled the mystery behind the disappearance of Julia's son. They discovered that Lucia, in a cruel and desperate act, had swapped Julia's newborn with Jennifer's deceased baby at the hospital. Both women had given birth on the same day, facilitating the malicious exchange. Shocked by this revelation, Julia demanded answers. "How is this possible? Why is Lucia not in prison? She should be held accountable, along with Octavio. I need to confront her, look her in the eyes, and ask why she ruined my life and my son's." The detective, with a grave expression, informed her, "Life has its own way of meting out justice. Lucia is now confined to an asylum, battling a terminal illness. She spends her days alone, without visitors, enduring immense suffering. And to complete the picture, Octavio succumbed to tuberculosis in prison. These words made Julia realize that, in some way, Lucia was already facing the consequences of her actions, isolated and forgotten in her final days. Upon arriving home, Julia was greeted by a heartwarming scene. Simon and John were engrossed in a playful game, while the savory aroma of Mark's tortilla filled the air. Their faces lit up at the sight of her. "Mom, you're back. We missed you. Is everything okay?" "You look a bit worried," John remarked, perceptive to Julia's expression. Seated at the table with her beloved family, Julia opened up about her emotions. "Today, I'm reminded of how incredibly blessed I am. I have 2 amazing sons, a husband who's my rock, and a fulfilling job. I truly feel fortunate." As Mark served dinner, he chimed in, "I'm glad you recognize our blessings. Remember, we're always here for you." The dinner conversation was animated, filled with laughter and dreams for the future. John, now fully integrated into the family, shared in the joy. In their home, where love prevailed, everything felt harmonious. Together, they had weathered storms and overcome obstacles. Now, with the shadows of the past behind them, they looked forward to a future brimming with happiness and unity. Their life, rich with love and companionship, marched onward, leaving darkness behind and paving the way for days of joy and fulfillment. If you enjoyed this story, we'd appreciate a like and a subscribe to our channel. Your support enables us to continue sharing incredible stories almost daily. Don't miss out on the next captivating tale coming your way. Thank you for being a part of our journey. Until next time.